Chapter 772. In the middle of the night, Zhou Meng was shocked by the news brought by his secretary. Shangguan Yuanhao had taken control of the Black City's Elders Guild and announced that Black City was leaving the Star Dragon Federation and forming an independent country. Is the leader crazy? Zhou Meng was in disbelief. Why would Shangguan Yuanhao do something so crazy? He was basically pushing the entire Black City into a fire pit. Zhou Meng hurriedly got dressed and rushed to Shangguan Yuanhao's residence. When he arrived at Shangguan Yuanhao's residence, he bumped into Si Tang. He immediately asked Si Tang, where is your teacher? Si Tang looked at Zhou Meng and said, Uncle Zhou, my teacher knew that you would come here to look for him. He specifically asked me to wait for you here. He is in the meeting room. I will bring you to him now. Zhou Meng heard this and asked Si Tang, you know what your teacher did? Si Tang nodded and said to Zhou Meng, at first, I was a little surprised. However, after I understood the situation, I could understand teacher's decision. I believe that you will be able to understand teacher's decision as well. Zhou Meng frowned when he heard this and asked, what is going on? Si Tang pretended to be mysterious and smiled. You will know when the time comes. When Zhou Meng saw this, he did not ask any more questions. He boarded the flying shuttle with Si Tang and headed to the meeting hall. The two of them walked into the meeting hall, where the door was wide open. They saw many elders from Black City in the meeting hall. Zhou Meng initially thought that these elders would be angry at Shangguan Yuanhao's actions. However, these elders had a strange expression on their faces. They did not seem angry at all. Zhou Meng, you are here. Shangguan Yuanhao smiled as he looked at Zhou Meng, who was walking in from outside. Zhou Meng quickly walked to Shangguan Yuanhao's side and asked in confusion, Leader, what is going on? I know that it is difficult for you to accept this. However, please believe me. I made this decision for the future of the human race. Shangguan Yuanhao sighed helplessly and handed Zhou Meng a piece of information. Take a look at this. Zhou Meng received the report with some doubt. When he saw the contents of the report, he couldn't help but widen his eyes in shock. He cried out, the insectoids are actually hiding an even larger army outside of space? That's right. What we see outside Star Dragon City right now is just the vanguard of the insectoid army. The other army is not moving because they are waiting for the best time to attack. They want to take down the monster realm in one fell swoop and occupy both the monster realm and the Star Dragon Federation. Do you think we can stop Zerg's attack? Zhou Meng was stunned for a while before he asked, where did you get this information? When I was in the Air Center, I belonged to the Starry Councilman's faction. Now, the Starry Councilman is serving in Zerg's fleet in World Mountain. In order to expand his speaking power in Zerg, he revealed this information to me and asked me to make a choice. Choice? What should I choose? At this moment, Zhou Meng suddenly had a bad feeling in his heart. Shangguan Yuanhao took a deep look at Zhou Meng and asked, Zhou Meng, tell me, do you want to live a better life, or do you want to die meaninglessly for the Star Dragon Federation, which is about to sink under the insectoid army? Zhou Meng didn't know how to answer Shangguan Yuanhao's question. Of course, he didn't want to die. However, even if he didn't want to die, would he be able to live? Would Zerg let him go? Unless, Zhou Meng seemed to have thought of something. His expression changed slightly. He asked Shangguan Yuanhao, Captain, are you going to join Zerg like that Starry Councilman? Shangguan Yuanhao nodded solemnly after hearing Zhou Meng's words. He said to Zhou Meng, this is a helpless choice. It's also the only choice. I can't think of any other way to protect the human race. Zhou Meng, you have to know that there is only hope if we live. If we die, there will be nothing left. We are joining Zerg not for ourselves, but for the future of the entire human race. We want to preserve the spark of the human race. Only by preserving the spark of the human race can we rise again. If we don't even have the spark of the human race, then there will never be a human race in this world. Shangguan Yuanhao's words were like magic in Zhou Meng's ears. It sounded very correct, but when he thought about it carefully, there seemed to be something wrong. Captain, Zhou Meng opened his mouth. He didn't know what to say. At this moment, he couldn't agree with Shangguan Yuanhao's words. I know it's hard for you to accept this in a short period of time. To be honest, I feel the same way. However, there are some things that we have to face. Shangguan Yuanhao said to Zhou Meng, you don't have to rush to give me a reply. You can think about it slowly. What you need to do now is to stabilize Linlin's emotions and let Linlin and become Dao companions as soon as possible. I think it's better to do it tomorrow. Tomorrow is the founding day of our Sky Kingdom. There is no better time than today. Zhou Meng didn't expect Shangguan Yuanhao to still care about Zhou Lin and Si Taiying becoming partners at a time like this. It seemed like Shangguan Yuanhao cared more about this than they did. I understand. Zhou Meng's mind was in a mess. He didn't have time to think about the connection between these things. He was only following Shangguan Yuanhao's instructions. He didn't want to think about the rest. World Mountain. Lord Yinshan sat on a cloud platform, overlooking the battlefield on the ground. The shifter army was charging at Zerg's defense line fearlessly. Large numbers of shifter army were sacrificing themselves every second. However, the shifter army didn't care at all. They were determined to break through Zerg's defense line in one go. Lord Yinshan, there's news from the Star Dragon Federation. A ghost appeared beside Lord Yinshan and said softly, Sky City has rebelled. They've established themselves as the Kingdom of the Sky. Hearing this, Lord Yinshan's expression changed. He said softly, it seems like the Star Dragon Federation is done for. No one can stop Zerg from conquering this world. Lord Yinshan, it's time for us to take action. The ghost looked at Lord Yinshan passionately. It's time for our Kingdom of the Sky to be established. You're right. A sick smile appeared on Lord Yinshan's face. We're going to establish our kingdom of Yin cultivators on this land. Yin cultivators are the rulers here. They're the high and mighty gods. No one will look down on Yin cultivators. We'll be truly equal. Chapter 773. Virum. Hearing the door to the cultivation room open, Zhou Lin slowly opened her eyes and looked in the direction of the door. She looked at Zhou Meng, who was walking in a daze, and asked expressionlessly, What are you doing here? Zhou Meng looked at Zhou Lin, who was sitting cross-legged on the floor and cultivating. He had a complicated expression on his face as he said softly, Lin, your wedding with Si Taiying has been set for tomorrow. Zhou Lin was silent for a moment before she said softly, Have you thought about the conditions that I agreed to? Zhou Meng slowly walked to Zhou Lin and sat down. He looked at Zhou Lin in confusion and asked, Lin, did I do something wrong? Seeing that Zhou Meng was not in a good state, Zhou Lin frowned and asked, What's wrong with you? Facing Zhou Lin's question, Zhou Meng shook his head and said to Zhou Lin, It's better that you don't know about this. I don't want you to worry. The more Zhou Meng said this, the more curious Zhou Lin became. She looked at Zhou Meng and asked, If you still think of me as your daughter and you as my father, then don't hide everything from me. If you don't tell me, I'll find out about it sooner or later. However, our relationship will become more and more distant because of this. Since I've said this, you can choose for yourself. Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Zhou Meng fell into a long silence. After a long time, he raised his eyes to look at Zhou Lin and said faintly, Your teacher, Shangguan Yuanhao, did something that shocked me. He controlled the entire upper echelons of Black City and announced in the name of Black City that Sky City would break away from the Star Dragon Federation and become an independent country. Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Zhou Lin could not help but be shocked. She said in disbelief, How dare he? This is a crime against the world. I know that this is crazy. Once this news gets out, the world will despise him. However, he gave me a reason that I can't refute. Zhou Meng had a bitter expression on his face as he said to Zhou Lin, "Do you know? Zerg's army is just the tip of the iceberg. Zerg still has more troops hidden in outer space. Now that the demon race's army is gathered in the Boundary Mountain, Zerg's troops will find a suitable time to directly attack the demon realm and defeat the demon realm in one fell swoop. By then, our entire world will fall." Zhou Lin's heart was greatly impacted by Zhou Meng's words. If things were really as Zhou Meng said, she couldn't imagine what kind of terrifying disaster it would be. "Father, what does this have to do with Master establishing his own kingdom?" Zhou Lin was confused. "Can we survive if we betray the Star Dragon Federation now?" Zhou Meng looked at Zhou Lin with a complicated gaze and said, "Your teacher plans to join Zerg and become Zerg's representative in this world. She will help Zerg manage the remaining humans. The humans will use this opportunity to prolong their existence for a better future." Upon hearing this, Zhou Lin's expression turned extremely ugly. She cried out involuntarily, "Teacher, not only are you betraying the Federation, but you're also siding with Zerg? Is he crazy?" "I think he's crazy too. However, under such circumstances, can you think of a better way to protect the humans?" Zhou Meng sighed helplessly. "Other than becoming Zerg's vassals, what else can we do? Even if there's no other way, he can't betray the humans." Zhou Lin said angrily, "If he really wants to do that, I'll sever our relationship as teacher and disciple." Zhou Lin could not accept this. No matter how noble Shangguan Yuanhao's reasons were, betrayal was betrayal. Zhou Meng could understand Zhou Lin's feelings. However, understanding and agreeing were two different things. He looked at Zhou Lin seriously and said, "Your teacher is very concerned about you and Si Tying. Do you know what's the connection between the two of you?" At this moment, Zhou Meng suddenly remembered that Shangguan Yuanhao was very concerned about Si Tying and Zhou Lin becoming partners. It seemed like he could not wait any longer. Could it be that Shangguan Yuanhao would benefit from Si Tying and Zhou Lin becoming partners? Zhou Meng did not believe that Shangguan Yuanhao only wanted to have two more nascent soul stage cultivators in Sky City. Zhou Lin shook her head after thinking for a while. "Although I've been with teacher for a few years, I rarely stay by his side. Si Tying is always by his side. I don't know what benefits it would bring to teacher if Si Tying and I become partners." After hearing Zhou Lin's answer, Zhou Meng suddenly said, Lin, you should leave." Zhou Lin was stunned. She asked, "Leave? Where to?" "Anywhere is fine. I don't want to stay in Sky City anymore." Zhou Meng looked at Zhou Lin guiltily. "I was wrong as a father in the past. I don't want to continue making mistakes now. Leave. Go where you want to go and do what you want to do. It's your choice to like who you want to be with. It's your freedom. I won't interfere with you anymore." After hearing Zhou Meng's words, Zhou Lin could not help but tear up. She looked at Zhou Meng and said with a choked voice, "Father, do you know how long I've wanted to hear you say this? I'm sorry. It's my fault." Zhou Meng sobbed. "It's my fault. Let's leave together. We'll leave this place together." Zhou Lin said to Zhou Meng, "We'll go to the City of Elves and find the Black Moon Combat Academy. No, I have to stay and keep your teacher in check. Otherwise, he'll be suspicious if he finds out that we've all disappeared." Zhou Meng shook his head. "Don't worry. Your teacher and I have been friends for many years. He won't do anything to me." "No, it's too dangerous." Zhou Lin shook her head. "Let's leave together. Now." Zhou Meng did not hesitate. He nodded and said, "Okay, let's leave together. If we encounter any danger, I'll stay behind to cover you." Just as Zhou Meng and Zhou Lin were about to leave Sky City under the cover of night, a series of crisp applause suddenly sounded behind them. Asterisk clap, clap, clap. Asterisk Shangguan Yuanhao clapped his hands as he slowly walked into the cultivation room. He looked at Zhou Meng and Zhou Lin with a gloomy look and said with a cold voice, "What a touching father-daughter relationship. I never thought that when I needed help the most, you too would be the first to betray me. Zhou Meng's expression changed when he saw Shangguan Yuanhao. He subconsciously explained, Captain, Shangguan Yuanhao, you betrayed the Star Dragon Federation and joined Zerg. You're a traitor. We don't want to be associated with you. Zhou Lin interrupted Zhou Meng and said to Shangguan Yuanhao in a firm tone, I used to call you teacher because you were a person of virtue and prestige. But now you're not worthy of being my teacher. Even if you kill me today, I won't bow down to you and admit my mistakes. Chapter 774. In the sky above Star Dragon City, the battle was still ongoing. Although the arrival of the 10th Army had given the soldiers of Star Dragon City a boost in morale and caused some chaos in Zerg's front line, Zerg quickly stabilized and fought steadily, turning the situation around. However, Star Dragon City did not want to fight a protracted battle with Zerg. They wanted to end the battle quickly. Qin Ju stood up from his seat in the command room and said in a deep voice, Pass down the order, have all the warships move out and fire at full power. Logistics fleet, go up as well. With Qin Ju's order, the entire 10th Army began to operate closely. More than 300 warships gathered together and launched a fierce bombardment at Zerg's army. They did not care about the cost and losses, they just wanted to forcefully destroy Zerg's front line. Facing the powerful attack of the 10th Army, Zerg's fleet displayed their tenacity. While using their energy shields to resist the artillery attacks, they were also constantly counterattacking. From time to time, they would shoot down a warship and continuously reduce the firepower of the 10th Army. Seeing that this war was about to become a war of attrition, Qin Ju ordered without hesitation, let the surprise fleet attack. I want them to pierce through Zerg's western front within 10 minutes. Even if only one person is left, charge forward. Hearing Qin Ju's words, Yuna, who was standing at the side, couldn't help but reveal a look of pity. According to Qin Ju's fighting style, even if they could win this war today, there was nothing to be happy about. This was because the 10th Army would definitely be crippled. Who knew how long it would take to rebuild it? As if he could see through Yuna's thoughts, Qin Ju pursed his lips and said, This is war. It's cruel and realistic. There will always be sacrifices and sacrifices. Now is the time for our 10th Army to sacrifice and pay. Ever since the 10th Army was converted into a warship unit, they had not fought any major battles. Today was a good time to test their combat strength. If they still had to worry about losses and sacrifices during a war, then they might as well not fight and just farm at home. In Qin Ju's opinion, as long as the sacrifice was meaningful, it was worth it. If they could not defeat Zerg today, then they could forget about defeating Zerg in the future. Yuna, keep an eye on this place. Qin Ju looked at Yuna. I want to move with the surprise fleet. General, how can this be? Yuna was shocked. This is too dangerous. Dangerous? There is no safe place on the battlefield. If others can charge, so can I. Qin Ju looked deeply at Yuna. Marshal Mo has set a good example for us. We can't embarrass him. Before he could finish his sentence, Qin Ju walked out of the command room. It had been a long time since she had advanced to the nascent soul stage. Today was a good opportunity to show off her skills. Marshal, the 10th Legion's attack is a little fierce. Our defensive line can't hold on much longer. Shi Feng looked at Ka Feng and suggested, should we send some troops over to support them? Hearing this, Ka Feng glanced at Shi Feng and asked, how long until the main army arrives? Marshal, it will take another hour for the main army to arrive at the battlefield. Also, Shi Feng looked at Ka Feng with a subtle look in his eyes. I just received a report from the scouts. The 1st, 2nd, and 3rd Corps of the Star Dragon Federation have arrived. They will definitely attack us within 10 minutes. Good, very good. It's good that they're all here. Ka Feng chuckled. Only then will I have a chance to catch them all in one fell swoop. Ka Feng was not afraid that many people would come today. He was afraid that some people would not come. In today's battle, he wanted to sweep through the entire Star Dragon Federation's high-end combat strength and completely cripple them. This would lay the foundation for their invasion of the banished land. Pass down the order. Tell all the soldiers that the main army is about to arrive. Tell them to slow down and let the Star Dragon Federation see some hope of winning. Ka Feng sneered. Give them hope first, then make them despair. Reporting to the general. In 3 minutes, Zerg's army will enter our range of fire. Wang Tianyuan, who was standing in front of the command post, heard his subordinates report and immediately replied, Pass down the order. When Zerg's army enters our range of fire, immediately open fire. Use the fiercest attack against Zerg. Don't hold back. Fight to the death. The commanders of the other armies standing on the side did not have any objections to Wang Tianyuan's words. They came here today to avenge Marshal Mo and to fight Zerg. Now that the opportunity was right in front of them, they naturally had no reason to hesitate. Han Xian, tell the rebels under you that if they want to fight on the front lines, then go. If they don't want to, then it's fine too. It's all up to them. Wang Tianyuan instructed Han Xian. Then he looked at Lu Sun and Song Ji. He said to them, We'll gather all the elites of the 3 armies together and form a surprise attack force. We'll go to the front lines of Star Dragon City to support them. No problem. Lu Sun and Song Ji did not have any objections to Wang Tianyuan's arrangement. If they wanted to win this battle, Star Dragon City's defense force was crucial. They had to provide enough support to Star Dragon City's defense force. What about me? Han Xian looked at Wang Tianyuan. Although my 7th Army is not a battleship army, our battle strength is not weak at all. I request for a mission for my 7th Army. Old Han, your 7th Army will go and support the 10th Army. Help the 10th Army open a gap in Zerg's army. As for what to do, just act according to the situation. Wang Tianyuan said to Han Xian. On Qin Ju's side, only the 10th Army is not very stable. I'll only be at ease if you go. I promise to complete the mission. Han Xian saluted Wang Tianyuan, then turned around and walked outside. Their 7th Army was going to the battlefield and win the battle. Boom, boom, boom. A series of earth-shattering roars sounded. The light of cannon fire lit up the dawn sky. It was as if the sun was hanging in the sky at noon. The battle has begun. Wang Tianyuan looked at the front lines and said in a deep voice, Whether or not our Star Dragon Federation can survive will depend on today. Hearing Wang Tianyuan's words, Lu Sun and Song Ji's faces became serious. They were all people who had experienced hundreds of battles. They knew very well that Zerg's current predicament was only temporary. When Zerg counterattacked, the battle would truly begin. The advantage they had now was nothing, and they could not change the direction of the battle. We will definitely win. Chapter 775. Don't try to resist. It's useless. Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Zhou Lin coldly and said, I taught you everything you know. You can't resist me. Zhou Lin took a deep look at Shangguan Yuanhao and asked, What do you want? I don't want anything. As long as you become partners with Ying and help her advance to the nascent soul stage, I will let you and your father go after everything is done. However, if you don't want to cooperate with me, I will have to use force against you. Shangguan Yuanhao did not think that Zhou Lin and Zhou Meng could escape from his control. He had been planning in the Sky City for many years. Even if he did not stop Zhou Lin and Zhou Meng today, they would not be able to escape from the Sky City. If it were not for the fact that he wanted Zhou Lin to cooperate with his plan, he would not have wasted his breath on Zhou Lin. When Zhou Lin heard what Shangguan Yuanhao said, she looked at him coldly and asked, You were waiting for this day when you took me in as your disciple, right? You never treated me as your disciple from the beginning. Instead, you treated me as Si Taing's cauldron. Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Zhou Lin and said, Don't you think it's too late for you to think of this now? Leader Yu, Zhou Meng looked at Shangguan Yuanhao in shock. He did not expect Shangguan Yuanhao to take Zhou Lin in as his disciple for this day. Zhou Meng, I really treated you as a friend. However, your performance today has disappointed me. You did not show any support for me in the meeting room. After that, you even ran away with your daughter. I am heartbroken that you have treated our friendship for so many years like this. Shangguan Yuanhao sighed. He seemed to be heartbroken for Zhou Meng's actions. He did not think that there was anything wrong with him at all. Father, you have finally seen this person's true colors. Zhou Lin gritted her teeth and said. He approached us with an ulterior motive. It was all premeditated. I'm sorry. As your father, I have implicated you. Tears streamed down Zhou Meng's face as he regretted his actions. If he had seen Shangguan Yuanhao's true colors earlier, he would not have allowed such a thing to happen. Alright, I've already said everything that needs to be said. You just have to stay here quietly and cooperate with my plan. I guarantee that I'll let you all leave after Ing reaches the nascent soul stage. I can swear on that. Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Zhou Lin. I think you should know how to choose, right? As long as I cooperate with you, you're willing to let us go after the deed is done. Zhou Lin didn't quite believe Shangguan Yuanhao's words. Even though Shangguan Yuanhao had said that he could swear an oath, she still didn't believe him. Of course, but in order to prevent you from going back on your word, I need to take your father away. At that time, if you are not willing to cooperate with me, then I will have to make a move on your father. But don't worry, for the sake of our many years of brotherhood, I will not take his life. Shangguan Yuanhao's words were simple, but to Zhou Lin and Zhou Meng, it sounded like the howling of a devil. Lin, don't listen to him. He wants to use me to threaten you. When the time comes, even if we cooperate with his plan, he will not let us go. Zhou Meng said angrily. If you ask him to swear an oath now, do you think he will dare to? Hearing Zhou Meng's words, Shangguan Yuanhao's eyes flashed. He sighed again and said, Zhou Meng, don't we even have this basic trust between us? Shangguan Yuanhao, as long as you swear an oath now, I will cooperate with you. If you are not willing to swear an oath, then I would rather die than let your plan succeed. Although Zhou Lin did not know what Shangguan Yuanhao's plan was, she could guess that this plan would only work if Si Taiying reached the nascent soul stage. As long as she grasped this point, she believed that Shangguan Yuanhao would not dare to do anything to them before Si Taiying reached the nascent soul stage. Alright, I can swear an oath. Shangguan Yuanhao looked deeply into Zhou Lin's eyes. I swear that as long as you cooperate with me and help Si Taiying reach the nascent soul stage, I will not hurt you and your father. I will also let you and your father leave Sky City. If I break this oath, may I be struck by lightning. Hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's oath, Zhou Meng and Zhou Lin's expressions changed. Now that Shangguan Yuanhao had sworn an oath, they no longer had any reason to ask him to do anything. Although there were some loopholes in the oath, they believed that this was the best that Shangguan Yuanhao could do. Now that I have sworn an oath, you don't have any other requests, right? Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Zhou Lin. Don't worry, I will take good care of your father during this period of time. I will not let him suffer. As he spoke, Shangguan Yuanhao pointed at Zhou Meng. Zhou Meng froze and floated to Shangguan Yuanhao's side. Stay here obediently. I will send someone to pick you up tomorrow morning. I will teach you what to do then. After speaking, Shangguan Yuanhao led Zhou Meng out of the training room. Zhou Lin looked at Shangguan Yuanhao and Zhou Meng as they left. She could not help but feel helpless. In the sky above Star Dragon City, the sky was slightly bright. The Star Dragon Federation had split into 3 groups to attack Zerg's fleet. It seemed like they had the upper hand, but in reality, both sides were evenly matched. The Star Dragon Federation could not defeat Zerg's fleet, and Zerg's fleet did not retaliate either. Something is not right. Wang Tianyuan looked at the map of the battlefield and frowned. Zerg's reaction was completely different from what he had expected. Indeed, something is not right. Zerg's reaction is too strange. Song Ji frowned and said, "In the past few confrontations, Zerg has always liked to take the lead. But now, Zerg is not coming out. It seems like he wants to fight a protracted battle with us. This is not Zerg's style. Could it be that Zerg does not want to fight us head-on and wants to use up our ammunition?" Lu Xun thought for a moment and said, "Maybe they want to minimize their losses and take us down with a small price." Wang Tianyuan and Song Ji agreed with Lu Xun's words. They did not have a lot of ammunition left. If they continued to fight like this, they would run out of ammunition very quickly. By then, they would lose their firepower to suppress Zerg. If Zerg came out to fight them again, they would have a huge advantage. The situation would become very unfavorable for them. Just as Wang Tianyuan and the other two were discussing this matter, a figure suddenly rushed over and said in an extremely anxious tone, "General, the surveillance department just found an abnormal spatial fluctuation in the sky above Star Dragon City. We suspect that it has something to do with Zerg." Chapter 776. What did you say? Wang Tianyuan's expression changed greatly. He quickly walked in front of the adjutant and grabbed him by the collar. "Marshal, the surveillance department has detected abnormal spatial fluctuations in the sky above Star Dragon City. They suspect that it is related to Zerg." The adjutant said to Wang Tianyuan, "The general staff suspects that Zerg has transferred the garrison of the ring center over. This is just a guess. Tianyuan, calm down first." Song Ji said to Wang Tianyuan, "Maybe this spatial fluctuation has nothing to do with Zerg. But we still have to be prepared. Send a portion of our forces to the place where the spatial fluctuation came from." Lu Xun said to Wang Tianyuan, "Give me 100 battleships. I'll keep an eye on that place." Wang Tianyuan had already calmed down. He let go of the adjutant's collar and said in a deep voice, "For abnormal spatial fluctuations to suddenly appear in the sky above Star Dragon City, it is most likely related to Zerg. It is very likely that Zerg's reinforcements have arrived. We have to end this quickly. If we wait for Zerg's reinforcements to arrive, we will be finished." It was already very difficult for them to eliminate one Zerg army. If they waited for another Zerg army to join the battle, it would be even harder for them to win. Just as Wang Tianyuan was thinking about this, the intelligence department brought them new news, and it was good news. "General, the 10th Legion led by General Qin has pierced through Zerg's front line. They are now in the middle of Zerg's army. Zerg's formation is in chaos." Hearing this news, Wang Tianyuan's eyes suddenly lit up. He waved his fist and shouted excitedly, "Pass down the order immediately. All troops attack. Break Zerg's front line in one go. Fight them hand to hand and drown them with human wave tactics." Their 5 legions plus Star Dragon City had invested more than 200,000 battle power, while Zerg only had 70,000 to 80,000 battle power. Even if they were inferior to Zerg in terms of quality, their advantage in numbers was enough to offset this point. As long as they fought in a chaotic battle and did not give Zerg a chance to arrange his troops, their chances of victory would greatly increase. Just as Wang Tianyuan issued this order, the sky suddenly darkened. Everyone subconsciously looked out of the porthole, and when they saw the sky full of Zerg's battleships, they were all stunned. "Kill!" Qin Ju charged at the front. Every time he swung his sword, he would definitely take away the lives of a group of Zerg warriors. From the beginning of the ambush until now, nearly 1,000 Zerg warriors had died at his hands. Just as Qin Ju was about to go deeper, the captain of the surprise attack force beside her suddenly reached out and grabbed her arm. His voice trembled as he said, "General, look at the sky." Hearing the captain's words, Qin Ju subconsciously raised her head and looked at the sky. When she saw the black Zerg battleships that filled the sky, The ferocious expression on her face suddenly stiffened, and her eyes were filled with disbelief. This is Zerg's fleet? Qin-ju was in disbelief. Why did Zerg have another fleet? And it was even bigger than the fleet in front of them. This is not an illusion. Qin-ju gritted his teeth. It's really Zerg's fleet. After confirming this point, Qin-ju felt the world spinning. They had worked so hard to kill, and just as they were about to gain the upper hand and win, another Zerg fleet appeared. Was there anything more despairing in this world than this? General, the commander of the First Legion has sent a message. He wants us to retreat. The captain looked at Qin-ju with tears in his eyes. We have lost. Yes, although the battle was still going on, they had already lost. As long as this new Zerg fleet rushed into the battlefield, the advantage they had accumulated with great difficulty would be gone. Not only that, they would even be completely wiped out. Retreat? Where can we retreat to now? Qin-ju's face was filled with grief. Now that they had no way out, Zerg would definitely stop them and not give them a chance to retreat. Woo-woo-woo. A loud bugle call came from the sky. It was Zerg's bugle call to attack. The Zerg fleet that had just appeared in the sky was about to join the battle and sweep across all directions. Just as Qin-ju was in despair and the soldiers of the Star Dragon Federation were about to die, a loud dragon roar suddenly came from afar. A purple dragon flew over from afar like a sharp sword, piercing straight towards the Zerg fleet in the sky. Purple Star Divine Eye. Accompanied by a cold shout, a dreamy purple light suddenly appeared in the sky. This light was like a cloud that enveloped Zerg's fleet. The Zerg fleet that was originally diving towards the battlefield actually stopped in unison. Seeing this miraculous scene, everyone was dumbfounded. Whether it was the human race or Zerg, none of them expected such a thing to happen. Just as everyone was in shock, that cold voice sounded in everyone's ears again. I can only stop them for an hour. Whether you want to fight or retreat, you can decide for yourselves. This is the dragon race? Qin-ju looked at the purple dragon in the sky with a shocked expression on his face. This dragon race that suddenly appeared actually blocked Zerg's hundreds of thousands of troops by itself. Moreover, it could block them for a full hour. This was undoubtedly an extremely precious life-saving time for them. Pass down the order, we're retreating! Qin-ju shouted angrily. It was absolutely impossible for them to annihilate Zerg's army in front of them in an hour, so all they could do now was to retreat, seize all the time they had to retreat. Following Qin-ju's order, the 10th Legion's assault troops immediately began to retreat in an orderly manner. Although Zerg's side was trying their best to stop them, the results were minimal. At this time, the 10th Legion's assault troops were retreating. Wang Tianyuan was also nervously making follow-up arrangements. It was very difficult for them to withdraw from the battlefield of Star Dragon City within an hour, so when the time comes, there must be a troop left behind to cover the rear. After thinking for a while, Wang Tianyuan decided to leave the First Legion behind to cover the rear, and he would choose the same path as Marshal Mo, to fight to the death without retreating. Lu Xun, Songji, the future of Star Dragon Federation is in your hands. After I die, you and Qin-ju will control the joint fleet together and hold up the sky for Star Dragon Federation. Wang Tianyuan looked at Lu Xun and Songji with a solemn gaze and said in a deep voice, Remember, no matter what, you can't enter Star Dragon City. Once we join forces, we will definitely lose. Hearing Wang Tianyuan's warning that was close to his last words, Songji and Lu Xun's eyes turned red. They choked with sobs and couldn't say a word. Chapter 777. Zerg's Fleet. Ka Feng looked at the central army in the sky that was frozen by the purple light in shock and cried out, How is this possible? Ka Feng found it hard to believe. Even with his strength, it was difficult to do this. That was the central army of hundreds of thousands of Zerg, a force that could sweep through a world. How could it be stopped so easily? Just as Ka Feng was in shock, his deputy, Shi Feng, who was standing beside him, shouted, "Marshal, that dragon's condition is very strange." Hearing Shi Feng's words, Ka Feng subconsciously looked at the purple dragon between them and the central army. When he saw that the dragon's forehead was continuously releasing purple light into the central army, his eyes suddenly burst out with an extremely gloomy killing intent. He angrily said, "Pass down the order, everyone ignore the human fleet and attack with all their might to kill this dragon." With Ka Feng's order, the vanguard army that was conserving their strength and waiting for reinforcements immediately took action. They no longer hid and unleashed all their combat strength. However, their target was not the human fleet that was already retreating, but the mirage dragon in the sky. When Zerg's vanguard army changed their battle plan and rushed towards the mirage dragon in the sky, the human fleet immediately sensed the intention of Zerg's vanguard army. At this moment, they had yet to withdraw from the battlefield. If the mirage dragon was attacked by Zerg's vanguard army and caused Zerg's central army to lose control, then they could forget about retreating. We must, just as Qin Ju was about to say something to the soldiers around him, more than 300 battleships from the Alliance fleet in the distance suddenly charged towards the mirage dragon in the sky. They wanted to protect the mirage dragon and buy time for everyone. That's the fleet of the First Legion. Qin Ju immediately recognized the origin of this fleet. At the same time, he realized that the First Legion wanted to sacrifice himself to buy time for their retreat. Qin Ju, retreat immediately. Don't let down Tianyuan's painstaking efforts. At this moment, Qin Ju received a voice transmission from Song Ji. Hearing this voice, he couldn't help but tremble. His eyes couldn't help but moisten as he looked at the fleet that was rushing towards the horizon without hesitation. Tianyuan, stop talking, retreat quickly. Song Ji interrupted Qin Ju's words. Now was not the time to talk about this. If Qin Ju continued to hesitate, it would only cause all of Wang Tianyuan's efforts to go down the drain. Qin Ju gritted his teeth and said in a low voice, "I understand. Let's retreat." While the 10th Legion continued to retreat, the 1st Legion's fleet also clashed with Zerg's vanguard. However, the 1st Legion was no match for Zerg's vanguard. Dozens of their warships were shot down and thousands of their men were killed. Although the 1st Legion had suffered heavy losses, they had achieved their goal. They had successfully destroyed the plan of Zerg's vanguard, preventing them from successfully approaching the mirage dragon in the sky. The actions of the 1st Legion infuriated Karfeng, and he roared, "All senators, attack! I want to destroy this fleet within 10 minutes and leave nothing behind." Amidst Karfeng's roar, more than 300 senators of Zerg's vanguard charged out of the fleet at the same time and went straight for the 1st Legion. In front of this overwhelming and terrifying power, the 1st Legion was as weak as a thin sheet of paper and was almost instantly destroyed. When Wang Tianyuan, who was in charge of the main ship, saw this scene, he couldn't help but reveal a look of despair. With such a terrifying power in Zerg's vanguard, they had no chance of winning at all. It was a pity that he had been fantasizing about a decisive battle with the other party. Now, it seemed that it was just a daydream. Previously, Zerg's vanguard didn't use this power. It was clearly toying with them, wasting time and waiting for the main army to arrive. Lost, we've all lost. Wang Tianyuan clenched his fist. His eyes were filled with unwillingness. The other legions hadn't had time to withdraw from the battlefield. Once the 1st Legion was killed, the other legions wouldn't be able to leave either. When they were all wiped out, the hope of the human race would be completely gone. The heavens want my Star Dragon Federation to perish, my human race to perish. Wang Tianyuan let out a sorrowful and indignant roar. He actually imitated Mo Jun and burned his own life force in exchange for great power. He charged into Zerg's senators and started a massacre. In just a few breaths of time, more than a dozen senators had fallen under Wang Tianyuan's hands. The moment Wang Tianyuan burst out with his full strength, every human could feel his life force rapidly dissipating. Every human's face revealed an extremely pained and unwilling expression. Just as Wang Tianyuan was about to kill more insectoid archons, a tall crimson figure suddenly appeared in front of him. With a swing of his saber, Wang Tianyuan's head was chopped off. "Do you think you're a Mo Jun?" Ka Feng looked at the decapitated Wang Tianyuan with a ferocious expression. He really hated these humans. Weren't they afraid of death? Wang Tianyuan's death announced the complete collapse of the First Legion. Zerg's vanguard took less than 3 minutes to wipe out the First Legion. They aimed their spear at the Mirage Dragon in the sky. As long as they killed the Mirage Dragon, they could join forces and wipe out the Star Dragon Federation. Lu Zi, who had transformed into the Mirage Dragon, saw Zerg's vanguard approaching her. She couldn't help but feel sad. She had already done her best, but she still couldn't save the Star Dragon Federation. She couldn't turn the tide. Above Star Dragon City, Gao En, who was retreating, saw the scene of Ka Feng killing Wang Tianyuan. He couldn't help but shed a tear of blood from the corner of his eyes. His expression was agitated and ferocious. He let out a sorrowful and indignant roar. "Who can save my human race from this disaster? I, Gao En, am willing to give up everything." Whoosh! Just as Zerg's vanguard surrounded Lu Zi and was about to attack, a huge fireball suddenly fell from the sky. It smashed through the encirclement that Zerg had just set up and fell to the ground. "This is..." Ka Feng looked at the fireball falling from the sky. He couldn't help but be shocked. This was because he clearly saw that the burning fireball was one of Zerg's battleships. Before Ka Feng could figure out why Zerg's battleships fell from the sky, 2 more fireballs fell from the sky. Awoof! A loud wolf howl suddenly came from the sky. A huge silver wolf jumped out of the portal created by Zerg's vanguard and let out a powerful and domineering roar at Zerg's vanguard. Hearing this roar, both the human race and Zerg's eyes were attracted to the silver wolf. However, what really attracted everyone's attention was not the silver wolf itself, but the tall figure standing proudly on top of the silver wolf's head. This tall figure was none other than Qinchuan, who had just returned from the Sword God's ruins. Chapter 778. Standing proudly on top of the barbaric Wolf King's head, Qinchuan looked at the familiar mountains and rivers in front of him. Looking at the valiant and high-spirited Zerg army and the battered and exhausted human fleet, his eyes couldn't help but flash with a subtle look. "It seems that we came back at a very opportune time." Hearing Qinchuan's words, the barbaric Wolf King howled and replied, "Should we kill them all?" "Of course." Qinchuan's eyes flashed with a sharp look. "Didn't we come all the way here to kill them all?" Just as Qinchuan and the barbaric Wolf King were talking, Lu Zi's voice suddenly sounded in Qinchuan's ears. "Qinchuan, run!" Hearing Lu Zi's anxious voice, Qinchuan couldn't help but turn his head and look at the Mirage Dragon in the middle of the encirclement. A subtle look flashed in his eyes and he said with a strange tone, "I felt that your aura was somewhat familiar. At first, I wasn't sure, but now I'm sure that you are Lu Zi. But what the hell is going on?" Just as Qinchuan was wondering why Lu Zi turned into a Mirage Dragon, an angry roar suddenly sounded from Zerg's vanguard army. "Kill him!" Following this angry roar, several Zerg archons broke away from the encirclement and rushed towards Qinchuan in the sky. Just when everyone thought that Qinchuan would be killed by the Zerg archons, the several Zerg archons rushing towards Qinchuan strangely stopped halfway. Crackle! An extremely violent thunder force suddenly erupted from the bodies of these Zerg archons and turned them into ashes in an instant. As they stared at the ashes that slowly drifted down from the sky, everyone's gazes towards Qinchuan became incomparably strange. If it was said that no one felt that Qinchuan's appearance would have any impact on the situation, it was different now. Can an early nascent soul stage that can kill several Zerg Archons in an instant really be treated as an ordinary early nascent soul stage? I'm chatting with my friend, can you not disturb me? Qin Chuan looked calmly at Karfeng, who was standing in the vanguard army of Zerg. Are you in such a hurry to die? This guy is really arrogant. Karfeng looked up at the expressionless Qin Chuan and a cold glint flashed in his eyes. This was the first time he was looked down upon like this. Qin Chuan's words were carried by the wind into the ears of everyone on the battlefield. Everyone was shocked by Qin Chuan's strength. Even the many Archons in Zerg's army didn't dare to make any moves. Qin Chuan, you Luzi looked at Qin Chuan with great shock. Although Qin Chuan had always been a very powerful existence in her mind, she was still shocked when she saw Qin Chuan casually kill several Zerg Archons. What, do you think I'm very strong? Qin Chuan slowly came in front of Lu Zi and gently stroked the dragon horn on Lu Zi's head. Thank you for your hard work. Leave the rest to me. Remove this illusion. Hearing Qin Chuan's confident words, Lu Zi withdrew the purple light that shrouded Zerg's army without any hesitation. Seeing this scene, the humans couldn't help but feel a little worried. Qin Chuan looked very strong, but was it really okay to face hundreds of thousands of Zerg's army and nearly 1,000 Zerg Archons at the same time? But even if there was a problem, it was too late to do anything now, because Zerg's army had already woken up. Because they fell into the dream before, the hundreds of thousands of Zerg's soldiers were a little confused at this time. They still didn't understand what happened just now. But Karfeng, who was in the vanguard, shouted angrily, "Army, assemble!" Hearing Karfeng's roar, Zerg's vanguard immediately moved and quickly gathered with the army in the center. The nearly 300,000 Zerg army was like a huge dark cloud hanging over Star Dragon City, giving the humans great pressure. Karfeng stood in front of the army, looked at Qin Chuan in the distance, and asked, "Who are you?" Hearing Karfeng's question, Qin Chuan smiled and replied, "I'm the one who will kill you. I'll kill all of Zerg's people." "You just killed a few Archons and you think you've already won?" Karfeng sneered. "You're too arrogant. How dare you let go of my army? Do you think you can kill all 300,000 of my army by yourself?" "But I'll give it a try," Qin Chuan said calmly. "Even if it's 300,000 pigs, I might not be able to kill them all in a year and a half." Hearing Qin Chuan's mocking words, Karfeng's face suddenly became gloomy, and he shouted angrily, "All Archons, step out and kill him for this general. If anyone can take his head, this general will promote him to deputy general and reward him with a set of holy armor." The deputy general was in existence second only to Karfeng in Zerg's army. It could be said that he was second only to one person and above tens of thousands of people. He had a noble status, and it was a position that all Archons dreamed of. Now that Karfeng made this promise, the Archons looked at Qin Chuan with burning eyes. More than 800 Archons stepped out at the same time and surrounded Qin Chuan. The aura they released mixed together to create a momentum that could be said to be extremely shocking. Even if Karfeng was at his peak, he might not dare to face so many opponents at the same time. He didn't believe that Qin Chuan could withstand it. Today, Karfeng had already made up his mind. Even if he had to sacrifice more than half of the Archons, he would take down Qin Chuan. When the humans saw this scene, they couldn't help but worry for Qin Chuan. Facing the equivalent of 800 nascent soul stage cultivators at the same time, even a peak nascent soul stage cultivator might not have more than a 50% chance of winning. They wanted to support Qin Chuan, but they didn't have the strength. The corners of Qin Chuan's mouth couldn't help but reveal a wisp of a cold smile as he gazed at the formation before him. He said to LVZ, who'd already taken human form, "Just stand there and don't move. Just cheer for me. Today, I'll allow all of you to witness the results of my cultivation in the Sword God's ruins." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi was a little worried and wanted to say something. But at this moment, An extremely sharp sword chi suddenly burst out from Qinchuan's body. Sword, come! Following Qinchuan's angry roar, a silver-white sword shot out from his body. It let out a clear sword cry and went straight into the sky, sprinkling starlight all over the sky. Seeing this scene, Qinchuan was slightly stunned. He laughed and said, "I'm shouting for the god's sword intent. Why are you here to join in the fun? But I can understand your feelings of wanting to kill Zerg. Since you're already here, then let's kill." As Qinchuan's voice fell, the starlight in the sky suddenly turned into countless sharp sword chi that fell like raindrops, turning the entire world into a world of sword chi. Chapter 779. The sword chi that filled the sky was like a storm, instantly enveloping the insectoid army. Tens of thousands of sword chis rampaged through the insectoid army. The insectoid warriors with lower realms could not even block a single sword strike before they were killed. Meanwhile, the insectoid warriors who were slightly stronger could only hold on for a little longer. For a moment, the insectoid army was thrown into disarray and chaos. At the same time, Zerg's 800 senators brazenly charged towards Qinchuan. Countless energy fluctuations exploded in the air with Qinchuan as the center. It was like a grand fireworks show, stunning the entire sky. Qinchuan, who was at the center of the explosion, was protected by the thunder shield. He stood there motionlessly and focused on controlling the sword chi to attack Zerg's army. He did not put the 800 senators' attack in his eyes at all. Such a powerful performance left everyone dumbfounded. As expected of the boss. He's so cool. On the 7th Legion's fleet, Chen Chongqing looked excitedly at Qinchuan, who was fighting Zerg's army of 300,000 by himself. He was so excited that it was as if he was the one fighting Zerg's army. I really didn't expect Qinchuan to be so strong. Long Xiao sighed. He really has never disappointed us. This is probably what it means to be a natural powerhouse. No matter what kind of situation or predicament he faces, he can rise up. Su Yuluo was also a little envious of Qinchuan. Back then, when Qinchuan had just entered the Qi refinement stage, she was already at the late stage of the Golden Core stage. Now she was at the early stage of the nascent soul stage. Qinchuan was also at the early stage of the nascent soul stage. However, in terms of combat power, she was more than 10 streets behind Qinchuan. Su Yuluo wasn't the only one who felt this way. Qin Ju also thought the same. She never would have thought that the young man who still needed her protection would grow to such an astonishing level in just a few years and become the savior of all of them. The most complicated feelings were definitely Qin Chongxiao and Qin Yiming. Looking at Qinchuan, who was as steady as a rock in the face of Zerg's army of 300,000, they felt an indescribable bitterness and regret in their hearts. This was the real Qilin's son of their Qin family. However, due to various reasons, he had drifted further and further away from their Qin family. This was definitely an extremely painful loss for the Qin family. Actually, he chose the right path. If he returned to our Qin family, he might not have achieved what he has today. Qin Chongxiao sighed. Some people were born to explore the outside world. Wealth and glory could not affect their hearts. Gao En really wanted to cry at this time. As the chairman of the Star Dragon Federation, he was really in despair and pain when the Star Dragon Federation and the human race were facing the danger of extinction. The huge pressure made him want to fight to the death with Zerg several times. However, there were too many burdens on his shoulders, so he could not easily fight to the death. He did not even dare to die. But now, Qinchuan's appearance made him see the hope of the Star Dragon Federation and the future of the human race. Finally, there was someone who could replace him to hold up the sky for the human race and the Star Dragon Federation. Qinchuan, you are a hero. You are a hero to all of us. To the human race, Qinchuan was undoubtedly a savior and a superhero. However, to Zerg, Qin Chuan was a complete monster, a complete demon. Trash. All of you are trash. Ka Feng looked at the scene of the 800 senators surrounding Qin Chuan and was unable to restrain his anger. 800 senators could not even take down a mere Qin Chuan. They had truly lived for over 100 years in vain. Shi Feng, who was standing beside Ka Feng, also felt that the performance of the 800 senators was too mediocre. How was this not using their full strength? This was simply committing a crime. It seemed that the method of brave men will rise to the occasion was no longer feasible. There had to be a heavy punishment. By the time Shi Feng thought of this, Karfeng had already attacked, unable to restrain his anger. With a thunderous momentum, he beheaded the 2 senators standing at the back, shocking everyone. There is no need for trash to live. From now on, this commander will kill 2 senators standing at the very back every minute. Hearing Ka Feng's angry roar and seeing the corpses of their fallen comrades, all the senators showed a trace of fear on their faces. If they charged forward, they might have a chance to kill Qin Chuan and obtain the position of deputy commander. But if they fell behind, they would definitely be dealt with by Ka Feng. They had to choose between these 2 paths. In the center of the encirclement, Qin Chuan saw Ka Feng decisively kill 2 senators as an example to others. His expression couldn't help but become somewhat grave. If the 800 senators only acted without exerting their full strength, he could still resist. But once the 800 senators became serious, his situation would become very bad. Although he was very strong, he was far from being strong enough to look down on the 800 senators. Strike first and gain the advantage. Without waiting for the 800 senators to react, Qin Chuan took the initiative to attack. He went straight for the senator closest to him. With a raise of his sword, the senator's blood spilled on the spot. Just as Qin Chuan killed the senator, the other senators had already made their decision. They all rushed towards Qin Chuan, their faces full of determination. If they died at Ka Feng's hands, their names would be forever engraved on the pillar of shame. Pooh! A ball of scarlet mucus shot over from the distance and suddenly exploded in front of Qin Chuan. Before the mucus could touch Qin Chuan's body, Qin Chuan's figure had already turned into a bolt of lightning, instantly pulling away from the mucus. At the same time, a tall and mighty figure suddenly appeared above Qin Chuan's head. Both hands clenched into fists, fiercely smashing towards Qin Chuan's head. Bang! This fist solidly hit Qin Chuan, but it didn't send Qin Chuan flying as the senator had expected. That terrifying force that could pierce through the earth was forcibly blocked by Qin Chuan. Fortunately, this father's body is invincible. Otherwise, I would have been smashed by you. Qin Chuan angrily shouted. He raised his hand and counterattacked with a punch. Before his fist even got close, that astonishing force had already pierced through the senator's body, blooming into a bloody firework in the sky. Bang! A dark green ball of energy slammed into Qin Chuan's back. The powerful impact pushed Qin Chuan's body forward. At the same time, several senators attacked together, bombarding Qin Chuan from all directions. For a moment, Qin Chuan's situation became somewhat dangerous. Seeing that Qin Chuan was in a precarious situation, Zerg's morale was greatly boosted. The humans, on the other hand, were worried. Once Qin Chuan was defeated, the humans would really have no hope. Roar! At this moment, a cold dragon roar sounded. Lu Zi suddenly charged into the battlefield, disrupting the Zerg senators' formation. Chapter 780. Lu Zi rushed into the formation and used her purple star eyes to confuse the dozens of archons around Qin Chuan in an instant, greatly relieving the pressure on Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan came to Lu Zi's side after getting rid of the archons. He frowned and said, "Didn't I tell you to watch from the side?" "I can't watch anymore." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan. "I'm afraid that you'll be gone again if I keep watching." Qin Chuan wanted to say something, but Zerg did not want to give him any time to speak. Another round of bombardment began. As the battle unfolded, the cooperation between the Zerg Archons became more and more tacit, and the combat power they could exert became stronger and stronger. Compared to before, the pressure on Qinchuan had increased. If it were not for Lu Zi's cooperation, the pressure on him would have been even greater. Originally, the Zerg Archons were in awe of Qinchuan and did not dare to confront him head-on. However, after fighting with Qinchuan, they realized that Qinchuan was only SOSO. Although he was strong, there was a limit to his strength. Although they were not good in terms of quality, they could rely on numbers to crush him and win. After thinking through this, they became more and more courageous as they fought, and their momentum was completely unleashed. Seeing that Qinchuan and Lu Zi were besieged by Zerg Archons and were already in a disadvantageous situation, the humans could not help but feel deeply worried. If the situation continued to develop like this, Qinchuan and Lu Zi would definitely lose, or even die. No, we must find a way to relieve Qinchuan and Lu Zi of the pressure. Long Xiao frowned as she looked at the chaotic battle in the sky. She said to the people around her, "If we can temporarily stop Zerg's army of 300,000 and allow Qinchuan to retract his blade qi, the situation will be better." Hearing Long Zhao's words, Chen Chongqing shook his head and said, "No, Zerg's army is 300,000. Even if we all attack together, we won't be able to stop them." The First Legion had already been defeated, with less than a tenth of it remaining. While the remaining legions were still in good condition, they only had around 100,000 soldiers in total. Even if all of Star Dragon City's defenders were included, there were only 400,000 of them. It was almost impossible for them to stop the 300,000 insectoids. "I'm afraid it's too late to attack after we gather the army." Bai Yu shook her head. "We need to take the fastest, most convenient, and most effective action." Everyone frowned when they heard Bai Yu's words. They all knew that Bai Yu's words made sense, but it was extremely difficult to put it into action. Just as everyone was thinking about how to relieve Qinchuan's pressure, Star Dragon City suddenly made a move. Countless Star Dragon City defenders rushed out of the city and charged towards Zerg's army without hesitation. Seeing this scene, everyone immediately reacted. Star Dragon City's defenders had made a choice. Almost at the same time, all the legions made the same decision. They rushed towards Zerg's army at the same time to relieve Qinchuan's blade qi and relieve Qinchuan of the pressure. At this moment, all the legions were of one mind. For the survival of the Star Dragon Federation, for the future of the human race, they would not hesitate to die. In Zerg's army, Ka Feng's face suddenly turned ashen after he noticed the humans' actions. He coldly said, "These humans are really stupid. Doing this will only speed up their deaths. Everyone, listen up. Ignore the rain of swords and kill all these humans who don't know what's good for themselves." Following Ka Feng's order, Zerg's army immediately moved and rushed towards the human army. Qinchuan did not continue to control the blade qi to chase after Zerg's army. Instead, he took back the Silver River sword and used it to deal with the Archons in front of him. Silver River sword intent. Qinchuan shouted and used his spiritual energy to activate the Silver River sword. Stars filled the sky. When Zerg's Archons saw Qinchuan take back the Silver River sword, they were already vigilant. When Qinchuan swung the Silver River sword, they subconsciously stopped attacking and turned to defense. This decision could be said to be incomparably wise and also made them feel incomparably fortunate. 1. The Silver River sword intent spread out and filled the air between the Archons. It looked beautiful and bright, but it was actually filled with killing intent. Even a speck of starlight could kill. As long as there was a slight flaw in the defense, it would be infinitely magnified, laying the groundwork for death. When some Archons found the flaw and wanted to fix it, Lu Zi would always use her purple star divine eyes to interfere in time, creating the best opportunity for Qinchuan to attack. The two's cooperation was almost flawless, and dozens of Archons' lives were taken in the blink of an eye. The starlight was still spreading, and the slaughter was still ongoing. Kill! Kill them all! We can't retreat. We have no way out. In this hysterical roar, Zerg's army and the human army fiercely collided. The bombardment of the battleships no longer distinguished between friend and foe. Everyone's eyes were red from the killing. Whether it was for the human race or for Zerg, this battle was very important, and they could not afford to lose. Ka Fong looked at the many human experts on the battlefield, and couldn't help but coldly snort. His figure flashed and appeared beside Song Ji. He raised his hand and punched. Song Ji didn't even have the chance to react before his chest was punched through. Pooh! Song Ji vomited blood and flew back. His aura instantly withered, and his face was full of horror. On the other side, Lu Xun saw that Song Ji was seriously injured and subconsciously wanted to come to his rescue, but he unexpectedly encountered Ka Fong halfway. Ka Fong also punched through his chest and sent him flying back. A group of Zerg warriors took the opportunity to besiege him, and he was surrounded by danger. Ka Fong only attacked twice, and two of the humans' high-end combatants were seriously injured, causing the situation on the human side to instantly become somewhat unfavorable. Just as he wanted to take advantage of the situation to continue attacking the humans' high-end combatants, Gao En suddenly appeared in front of Ka Fong. "I won't let you continue attacking others." Gao En stared at Ka Fong. He wanted to avenge Mo Jun. Looking at Gao En standing in front of him, Ka Fong slightly narrowed his eyes and said indifferently, "I know you. You're the supreme leader of the human race. It's fine if you don't hide from me, but you actually dare to appear in front of me. You really have guts. The human race now has a new leader. I have nothing to be afraid of now." Gao En stared coldly at Ka Fong. "Today, even if I die, I'll drag Zerg down with me." "New leader?" Ka Fong sneered and turned to look at Qin Chuan and asked, "Are you talking about this kid? Although he has some ability, don't you think it's a bit ridiculous for the human race to rely on him to make a comeback?" "Ridiculous? Your insectoid Archons have already been slaughtered to the point of shedding their armor." Gowan was too lazy to talk nonsense with Ka Fong. He directly released his complete form and rushed towards Ka Fong. Chapter 781. Although Qin Chuan had killed dozens of Zerg senators with the Galaxy Sword, the sacrifice of a dozen or so senators was nothing compared to the number of 800 senators. It was almost impossible for Qin Chuan to break out of the encirclement in a short time. And if this stalemate continued, even if Qin Chuan was not defeated, the human race army might not be able to persevere. The longer this dragged on, the more disadvantageous the situation would be for the human race. At that time, if the human race army was completely annihilated, what was the point of Qin Chuan being alive? It was precisely because he knew this in his heart that Qin Chuan wanted to break out of this stalemate. Buzz! As if sensing Qin Chuan's thoughts, the Dragon Ball in Qin Chuan's body suddenly made a low buzzing sound. The dust covering the Dragon Ball fell off bit by bit, causing the Dragon Ball to shine again. The change in the Dragon Ball attracted Qin Chuan's attention. At this time, a chant involuntarily appeared in his mind. It was called Dragon Ball 9 Transformations. The moment the chant of Dragon Ball 9 Transformations appeared, Qin Chuan's eyes suddenly lit up. He roared and turned into a huge blue thunder dragon. He opened his mouth and spat out the Dragon Ball that was emitting endless golden light. When the Dragon Ball appeared in the sky, endless golden light instantly filled the entire world. Everyone's eyes turned golden. To the human race, this golden light was gentle and warm, but to the Zerg race, this golden light was incomparably fatal. In just a short period of time, the golden light that filled the sky gradually faded. When the golden light completely dissipated and everyone's vision returned to normal, something that shocked everyone happened. Most of the bodies of Zerg soldiers on the battlefield were slowly dissipating, melting little by little like snow under the sun. The visual impact of hundreds of thousands of Zerg soldiers disappearing at the same time was undoubtedly huge. It deeply shocked everyone's mind. Even Qin Chuan, who personally caused all of this, was stunned by the scene in front of him. He never thought that the Dragon Ball would have such a terrifying ability. It could actually completely change the situation of the battlefield in an instant, turning Zerg's advantage into a disadvantage in an instant. While talking and laughing, the Zerg soldiers turned into ashes. When the bodies of hundreds of thousands of Zerg soldiers completely disappeared from the world, everyone looked at the Dragon Ball that was emitting a gentle light in the air and Qin Chuan. Qin Chuan. At this moment, everyone realized that the disappearance of hundreds of thousands of Zerg soldiers was caused by Qin Chuan. Although this was a very unbelievable thing, it was the truth. Bastard! How could this be? Suddenly, an extremely angry roar rang in everyone's ears. Ka Feng stared at Qin Chuan, his eyes almost popping out of their sockets. He could not accept the fact in front of him, nor could he believe that there was someone in this world who could instantly wipe out hundreds of thousands of their holy race army. When everyone heard Ka Feng's roar, they subconsciously looked at Ka Feng. When they saw Ka Feng's figure, everyone's faces showed a touch of astonishment. Because Ka Feng's legs had disappeared. I'm clearly the one who has grasped the power of law. How can you erase us? How can 800 senators be instantly erased? Ka Feng was unwilling, extremely unwilling. He clearly had an army of 300,000 soldiers. As long as he gave the order, he could flatten the Star Dragon Federation within a day, and completely occupy the banished land within 3 days. But Qin Chuan's sudden appearance turned all of this into an unreachable dream. Qin Chuan was clearly only an early nascent soul stage cultivator. How could he possess such terrifying power? He was even more powerful than the heavenly kings under the Holy Lord. Ka Feng did not understand. He did not understand at all. Just as Ka Feng was roaring hysterically, the human side also discovered this extremely shocking matter. The 800 senators surrounding Qin Chuan had already disappeared. In other words, the golden light didn't just melt Zerg's ordinary soldiers, but also 800 Zerg senators comparable to nascent soul stage cultivators. Even Ka Feng was almost killed. Thinking of this, everyone couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan with incomparable awe. At the same time, they rejoiced in their hearts. Fortunately, Qin Chuan was their comrade and not their enemy. Qin Chuan looked at Ka Feng, who was about to go crazy, and pursed his lips. I don't know what the power of law you're talking about is, but I can indeed erase you from this world. You've already lost, so there's no need to continue struggling. With the Dragon Ball in hand, Qin Chuan was full of confidence. Bullshit. I haven't lost yet. Ka Feng roared, gather the army, give me. Boom. Before Ka Feng could finish his words, a golden ray of light suddenly shot out from the Dragon Ball and shone on his forehead. The power contained in the golden light almost instantly penetrated Ka Feng's head, melting Ka Feng on the spot like ice and snow. The commander of the Red Army, Ka Feng, fell. Hiss. In the Black Moon Mountain Range, Ka Guard, who had been quietly staying motionless in the seal, suddenly struggled violently. He opened his huge eyes and looked in the direction of Star Dragon City, letting out an angry roar. What happened? Why do I feel that the aura of my descendant has disappeared? Who can tell me what's going on? Suddenly, Ka Guard's struggle stopped. He seemed to have discovered something inconceivable. That's the Dragon Ball? The air traffic control troops surrounded Ka Guard, nervously and vigilantly watching Ka Guard's every move. Although they didn't understand why Ka Guard, who had been quiet for so long, suddenly went crazy and then suddenly quieted down, this didn't prevent them from realizing that although Ka Guard was sealed, he still maintained a clear consciousness and could even struggle violently. Fortunately, the power of the seal was strong enough, so Ka-Guard's struggle was futile. Otherwise, a bloody storm would have been set off in the Black Moon mountain range today. In the sky above Star Dragon City, not a sound could be heard. Ka Feng's fall had come too suddenly, and it was so sudden that everyone was at a loss. The powerhouse Zerg, who had killed Marshal Mo Jun, who had suppressed Star Dragon City with an army of hundreds of thousands, and who had caused the entire world to tremble, had been hacked to death just like that. They had clearly seen it with their own eyes, but it was so surreal that they couldn't believe it. When Zerg's army began to scatter, they threw away their armor and fled in all directions. Only then did everyone realize that this wasn't a dream. Zerg's powerhouses had all died, and Zerg's invasion had failed. Their Star Dragon Federation had won, and their human race had won. This was a desperate counterattack. This was a chance at life in a hopeless situation, and the one who had turned the tide was the Black Moon Combat Academy's Qin Chuan. Chapter 782. We won, we won. Qin Chuan, we won. Lu Zi looked at the fleeing remnants of Zerg's army and the high morale of the human soldiers, and couldn't help but burst into tears. She looked at Qin Chuan beside her with excitement. Qin Chuan smiled and said to Lu Zi, "Although I don't know what happened, we did win." To be honest, this battle was much easier than Qin Chuan imagined. If it weren't for the sudden change in the Dragon Balls, their chances of winning were not high. Even if they won in the end, it would be a Pyrrhic victory. Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan's face that she missed day and night. She couldn't help but tiptoe forward and kiss Qin Chuan's cheek. "I missed you so much." Lu Zi hugged Qin Chuan tightly. She couldn't wait to rub herself into Qin Chuan's body and never be separated again. Hearing Lu Zi's trembling voice, Qin Chuan smiled and hugged Lu Zi as well. He whispered in Lu Zi's ear, "I missed you too." It has been 5 years since they entered the Kunlun field. They haven't seen each other for 5 years. This is undoubtedly a very long time for Qin Chuan and Lu Zi, who are still very young. During this long period of time, their feelings for each other have not been worn down by the passage of time. Instead, they have become more and more affectionate. At this time, the human soldiers who were cleaning up the battlefield and chasing after Zerg's army all tacitly agreed not to disturb the young man and woman who were hugging each other affectionately in the sky, giving them enough time and space to be alone. Qin Chuan and Lu Zi didn't separate until Chen Chongqing and the others arrived. "Boss, I missed you too. Can you give me a hug of love?" Chen Chongqing stared at Qin Chuan, who was standing before him. His nose involuntarily turned sour as tears flowed down his cheeks. Over the past 5 years, he had dreamt of reuniting with Qin Chuan countless times. Now, his dream had finally become reality. Qin Chuan smiled and stepped forward to give Chen Chongqing a big hug. "You're still so weak. You're definitely last." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Chen Chongqing grinned and said, "It doesn't matter if I'm last, as long as you're first in the world. Boss, your performance today could be said to have saved the day. You're the hero of the Star Dragon Federation, the entire human race, and even the entire world. If it weren't for you, boss, no one would have been able to stop the insectoids from invading us." Everyone nodded in agreement when they heard Chen Chongqing's words. Just as Chen Chongqing said, if it weren't for Qin Chuan's sudden appearance at the critical moment, perhaps they would be the ones being chased and wiped out. Qin Chuan chuckled and said to everyone, "Actually, my performance wasn't that good. We were able to achieve such a good result because of everyone's hard work." Qin Chuan wasn't being modest. He knew his own strength very well. Even if he went all out, he could only be on par with Ka Feng. If it weren't for the sudden change in the Dragon Balls, their fate today would still be unknown. Qin Chuan. Gowen's figure slowly flew over from afar. He looked at Qin Chuan, who was standing in the middle of the crowd, with a complicated expression on his face. This was the first time Qinchuan saw Gowan, but he already knew Gowan's identity from the others, so he smiled and said to Gowan, "Chairman." Gowan shook his head and said, "Don't call me chairman. If you don't mind, you can call me Big Brother Gao." Although Gowan was a few hundred years older than Qinchuan, the two of them were of the same generation in terms of realm and cultivation. There was nothing wrong with calling him brother. Qinchuan didn't have any objection to this and called Gowan Big Brother Gao. "Qinchuan, you are the hero of our Star Dragon Federation, the savior of our human race. I thank you on behalf of the Star Dragon Federation." Gowan walked in front of Qinchuan and excitedly said to Qinchuan, "In any case, please accept my bow." Before his voice fell, Gowan bowed deeply to Qinchuan. Qinchuan hurriedly dodged and said to Gowan, "Big Brother Gao, please don't." "Qinchuan, just accept it. This is not only Chairman Gao's intention, but also our military's intention." At this moment, Qinju also slowly walked over. She didn't think that there was anything wrong with Gowan bowing to Qinchuan. Just based on Qinchuan's performance of saving the Star Dragon Federation and the human race by himself today, he deserved this bow. Hearing Qinju's words, Qinchuan thought for a moment and no longer dodged. He accepted Gowan's bow. After Gowan bowed to Qinchuan, a smile finally appeared on his face. Gowan looked at Qinchuan and said solemnly, "Qinchuan, now that the Star Dragon Federation is under attack by Zerg, there are many things waiting to be done. I hope that you can be the marshal of the military and lead the military." Everyone was shocked when they heard Gowan's words. No one thought that Gowan would actually ask Qinchuan to be the marshal of the military at this time. However, when they thought of Qinchuan's performance today, they felt relieved. In the current Star Dragon Federation, Qinchuan could be said to be the strongest person. It could be said that he was the most suitable to be the marshal of the military. Qinchuan looked at Gowan with a subtle gaze and asked, "Big Brother Gao, you want me to be the marshal of the military? Does this mean that Marshal Mo?" When they heard Qinchuan mention Mo Jun, everyone's faces darkened. Gowan sighed and said, "That's right, Mo Jun sacrificed himself heroically to protect Star Dragon City." "I see." Qinchuan looked at Lu Zi and said in a low voice, "I didn't sense Teacher's aura. Teacher Ning is still alive, but she's seriously injured and unconscious." Lu Zi said to Qinchuan, "You can go back and see Teacher Ning later. Maybe you have a way to cure her." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qinchuan was relieved. As long as she was still alive, there wouldn't be a big problem. "When we retreated from the center of the world of heirs, you died in the world within a world," Long Zhao said in a sad voice. Long Zhao's tone was a little sad as she said, "He always thought that it was his fault that you were targeted and locked up in the supervision department. He always blamed himself." Hearing the news of Shiyu's death, Qinchuan couldn't help but stare blankly for a moment. The expression on his face also became somewhat complicated. He said in a low voice, "I was the one who brought him out of the border mountain. I was the one who harmed him." Although Qinchuan and Shiyu didn't know each other for a long time, Qinchuan had always treated Shiyu as a friend. Now that he heard that Shiyu had been blaming herself for him being locked in the supervision department for so many years and was willing to sacrifice herself to atone for her sins, Qinchuan felt really bad. The joy of victory was also diluted at this time. Chapter 783. After the battle, the cleanup of the battlefield took more than half a day. According to the post-battle statistics, more than 200,000 Zerg were killed in this battle. More than half of the Zerg were killed by Qinchuan. Although the remaining Zerg managed to escape and survive, they would be wiped out sooner or later under the pursuit of the Star Dragon Federation. It was only a matter of time. The most important thing for the Star Dragon Federation was to immediately restore communication with other places and spread the news of Zerg's defeat to reassure the people. As the main contributor to this battle, Qinchuan's name was naturally written about. Just as everyone had expected, the results of the battle at Star Dragon City had shocked the entire world. In Sky City, Shangguan Yuanhao stood in front of the window and looked in the direction of Star Dragon City. His expression was extremely gloomy. The results of the battle in Star Dragon City had completely exceeded his expectations. At the same time, it had pushed him to the edge of the cliff. Si Taing stood behind Shangguan Yuanhao. She looked at Shangguan Yuanhao's back with a complicated expression. Just yesterday, she thought that Shangguan Yuanhao had made a very wise decision. She was proud to have such a powerful teacher. However, everything had changed today. Zerg's vanguard army and the Star Dragon Federation's army fought to the death. The Star Dragon Federation was supposed to lose. However, one accident after another caused Zerg's defeat to be irreversible. If Lu Zi's strong control of the situation was still within their acceptable range, Qinchuan's sudden appearance was completely out of their expectations. They could not accept it. In just a few years, Qinchuan had grown to the point where he could instantly kill Zerg's army of hundreds of thousands, including 800 senators and Zerg's commander. If this had not happened in front of their eyes, they would never have believed it. If this happened 2 days ago, it might not be a bad thing for them, but it happened after Sky City broke away from the Star Dragon Federation and established its own country, which put them in a very awkward situation. If the insectoids were only defeated and not completely defeated, they might still have a way out. However, now that the insectoids were completely defeated, they had lost their biggest support. Once the situation in Star Dragon City stabilized, they would definitely make a move against them and clean up their internal affairs. If teacher didn't have a grudge against Qinchuan, maybe we could negotiate with Star Dragon City and find a way out, but now, Si Taing thought to herself as a look of despair appeared on her face. There was no way out for them. Just as Si Taing was letting her imagination run wild, Shangguan Yuanhao suddenly turned around and looked at Si Taing. He said, "Let's keep the wedding simple. You and Zhou Lin should get married as soon as possible. Then, you can start cultivating together." Hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's words, Si Taing was stunned. She did not expect Shangguan Yuanhao to still be thinking about the wedding at such a critical moment. He was too calm. As if he could read Si Taing's mind, Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Si Taing and said, "Just focus on your cultivation now. Don't think about anything else. You don't have to worry about it. I just want to see you reach the nascent soul stage as soon as possible." Shangguan Yuanhao's attitude made Si Taing feel a little fearful. She did not understand why Shangguan Yuanhao was so insistent on her reaching the original infant stage. After all, whether she reached the original infant stage or not would not change their current situation. However, Si Taing was used to obeying Shangguan Yuanhao's orders. Therefore, even though she was fearful, she still subconsciously chose to obey. "I understand," Si Taing replied. She believed that Shangguan Yuanhao would not harm her. After all, she was Shangguan Yuanhao's only disciple. After Si Taing left to make arrangements for the wedding, Shangguan Yuanhao's face gradually turned gloomy. He lowered his head and looked at his hands. He said softly, "Why can't you give me a little more time? Why do you have to come back now? Qinchuan, your father could not stop me back then. You can't stop me either." Star Dragon City. Qinchuan sat on top of the city wall and looked at the ground in the distance. He looked at the dark red bloodstains on the ground that was riddled with holes. He could not help but have a complicated expression on his face. "I hate war." Lu Zi, who was sitting next to Qinchuan, heard Qinchuan's words. She pursed her lips and said, "No one likes war except for the bad guys." In Lu Zi's opinion, Zerg was the worst person in the world. He should be eliminated. If Zerg died, the world would definitely become a lot more peaceful. Qinchuan sighed when he heard this. He asked Lu Zi, "Do you know about the goblin race's situation?" Lu Zi's eyes flashed when she heard Qinchuan mention the goblin race. She asked, Do you want to ask me about Yao Rao? Qin Chuan nodded and said to Lu Zi, You are all very important people to me. I am very concerned about your safety. I am not sure about the goblin race's situation. However, I think Yao Rao should be fine. Lu Zi said to Qin Chuan, At that time, we were the last group of people who retreated from the Kunlun realm. Yao Rao had already followed some seniors of the goblin race back to the goblin realm. Qin Chuan lightly nodded when he heard Lu Zi's words. After a moment of silence, he said, I just heard that Sky City has already separated from the Star Dragon Federation and established itself as a country. Not only Sky City, there are also dozens of cities around Sky City. They think that Star Dragon City is hopeless. They think that Zerg will sweep across the world. But in the end, this is just their self-righteousness. Lu Zi smiled and said to Qin Chuan, We have you, so we won't lose. This was not because Lu Zi had blind trust in Qin Chuan, but because Qin Chuan used facts to prove that wherever he was, there would always be miracles. Qin Chuan turned to look at Lu Zi and asked, What about senior sister? How is she? I don't know. Lu Zi shook her head. Since I found out that her teacher was your enemy Shangguan Yuanhao, and she was indifferent to it, we haven't contacted each other. Now, as Shangguan Yuanhao's disciple, she should be living a good life in Sky City. Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Lu Zi, You accompany me to Sky City. I want to see senior sister. By the way, it's time to settle some grudges. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi reached out and held Qin Chuan's hand, and said in a firm tone, No matter where you go, as long as you need me, I will accompany you to the ends of the earth. Chapter 784. Jie Mountain, Mountain City. As the commander of Zerg's army in Jie Mountain, Sun Na was completely stunned when she heard the news from Star Dragon City. An army of 300,000 was defeated just like that? Even their commander, Ka Feng, had fallen? How could this be? No one could give Sun Na an answer to her question. None of them dared to believe this was real. How could a mere nascent soul early stage possess such shocking power? Even Ka Feng, who had grasped the power of law, was no match for him. Commander, we have to abandon World Mountain. If we continue to defend this place, we will definitely be defeated by the Monster Clan and the Human Clan when the Human Clan's army arrives. Someone suggested to Sun Na that they should immediately abandon the Jie Mountain battlefield and leave this place. Where can we go if we abandon Jie Mountain? Sun Na looked at the person who spoke in confusion. The army has already been defeated. Are we going to retreat to the center of Jie Mountain? From Sun Na's point of view, even if they retreated to the center of Jie Mountain, they would still die. With the army under her command and the troops left behind in the center of Jie Mountain, they could barely gather 50,000 people. However, judging from Qin Chuan's performance in Star Dragon City, these 50,000 people were not even enough to fill the gaps between Qin Chuan's teeth. The center of Jie Mountain would be taken back by Qin Chuan sooner or later. If she didn't put up any resistance and led her troops back to the Holy Light Galaxy, she would definitely be sent to the military court and would still be unable to escape death. Sun Na had never thought that she would fall into such a predicament one day. Commander, we won't return to the center of Jie Mountain. We will go to the Star Dragon Federation and find General Kargad. That person looked at Sun Na with an extremely serious gaze. As long as we can rescue General Kargad, we still have a chance to turn the tables. Hearing this person's words, everyone's eyes lit up. If this person hadn't mentioned it, they would have almost forgotten about General Kargad, who was still sealed. Zyke, you are a genius! Sun Na looked at Zyke with an extremely excited gaze and cheered. You have lit up the light in the darkness for all of us and guided us forward. There is no better choice than this. Sun Na's words were also the thoughts of everyone present. With their current situation, there was really no better choice than this. Zik smiled and said to Sun Na, Commander, Almost all of the human armies are gathered around Star Dragon City. As long as we move fast enough, we can definitely rescue General Kagid before they react. At that time, whether we continue to fight the humans and beasts in the Banished Land or retreat to the center of the realm of science, it's a good choice. Even if we directly return to the Holy Light Galaxy and return to the Holy Land, the merit of rescuing General Kagid will be enough to offset our mistakes in the war. General Kagid had always been the spiritual leader of their Crimson Army, and this had never changed. They believed that as long as they could break the seal on General Kagid, no one in the exiled land would be able to stop General Kagid. Hearing Zyke's words, Sun Na's eyes became brighter and brighter. At this time, she also realized that this was not only a chance to make up for her mistakes, but also a chance to turn defeat into victory. No matter what, she had to seize this opportunity. We will do as you say. We will ambush the Black Moon mountain range and rescue General Kagid. Sun Na looked around at everyone present. This time, we will teach the humans a lesson. What did you say? We are going to rotate now? In the hall, Star frowned as he looked at the Zerg warrior standing in front of him. He was very confused. They had just retreated from the front lines less than 2 hours ago, and now they had to go to the front lines again. This arrangement was too unreasonable. This is the commander's arrangement. The Zerg warrior looked at Star indifferently. If you have any objections, you can go and talk to the commander yourself. After saying this, the Zerg warrior ignored Starry Sky and turned around to leave. This is too much. He is just an ant in the Foundation establishment stage, and he dares to talk to me like that? Starry Sky was about to go mad with anger. As a late nascent soul stage cultivator, this was the first time he had been treated so rudely. If it weren't for the fact that he was afraid of the other party's insect clan identity, he would have already turned the other party into ashes. Alright, let's not talk about these meaningless things. Su Baijiang looked at Star and frowned. Zerg's goal is very obvious. They want to preserve their strength and exhaust our strength. Of course I can see that. It's because I can see that I am so angry. Starry Sky coldly snorted. They are blatantly bullying us. When I see Marshal Ka Feng in the future, I will definitely complain about him. Hearing Star mention Karfeng, Su Baijiang suddenly frowned. How long has it been since we last received news from Star Dragon City? Star was slightly stunned. After pondering for a moment, he said, previously, in order to deter us, Sun Na would send us a report about Star Dragon City almost every 2 hours. It has been more than 10 hours since the last report was sent, and there hasn't been any new information. Could it be that something happened to Zerg in Star Dragon City? That's unlikely. Su Baijiang shook his head. With Zerg's strength and the hundreds of thousands of soldiers in space, even the combined strength of the Star Dragon Federation is no match for them, not to mention now that Sky City has declared independence. In such a situation, as long as Zerg in Star Dragon City isn't a brainless dead pig, there won't be any problems. Hearing Su Baijiang's analysis, Star was relieved. He felt that Su Baijiang's words were very reasonable. Zerg would definitely not be defeated. The reason why Sun Na didn't continue to send them information might be because of other reasons. Perhaps she had forgotten. Then, about the rotation. Let's just follow their arrangements. Now that we are living under someone else's roof, this is all we can do. When the exiled land completely becomes Zerg's backyard, we might be able to relax a little. Just as Su Baijiang and Star were busy with the rotation, Zerg was also busy. However, they were not busy with how to defend against the shifter race's attack. Instead, they were busy with how to quietly leave the mountain range and head to the Black Moon Mountains to rescue General Kagid. At the same time, in Sky City thousands of miles away, everyone was panicking. Everything had become a mess. Under such circumstances, the wedding that Shangguan Yuanhao insisted on holding for Si Taiying and Zhou Lin finally began as scheduled. Chapter 785. In the Castle in the Sky. Zhou Lin sat in front of the window and looked out at the sparse group of people walking on the street. A trace of doubt flashed through her eyes. Why do all these people look so haggard? It seems like something bad has happened to them. It wouldn't be a big deal if it was just one or two people who didn't look too good. However, if everyone's complexion was very bad, then there was a problem. Perhaps something closely related to everyone had happened and affected everyone's mood. Zhou Lin could only make guesses and couldn't get a definite answer because she had already lost all contact with the outside world. It could be said that she was in the dark and didn't know anything at all. Just as Zhou Lin was thinking about these things, the door of the training room behind her slowly opened. Si Taiying walked in from the outside. He looked at Zhou Lin's beautiful back with a strange look in his eyes. Hearing the commotion behind her, Zhou Lin slowly turned around and looked behind her. When she saw Si Taiying, she said softly, "So it's you. I'm here to inform you that the wedding will be held in 2 hours. According to my master, everything should be kept simple." Si Taiying took out a set of clothes and threw it in front of Zhou Lin. "These are the clothes you will be wearing later. Remember to change into them." Zhou Lin lowered her head and looked at the red wedding dress that Si Taiying threw in front of her. A complicated look flashed across her eyes. She asked, "What happened outside?" Hearing Zhou Lin's words, Si Taiying's expression changed. She said coldly, "This is not something you should know." Seeing the change in Si Taiying's expression, Zhou Lin looked at her deeply and said, "What are you afraid of? Why don't you dare to let me know what happened outside? Is your kingdom in the sky going to be destroyed? What nonsense are you talking about?" Si Taiying was furious. "If you dare to talk nonsense again, do you believe that I will? All right, I won't ask you anymore." Zhou Lin smiled as she interrupted Si Taiying. "Don't be so agitated. Those who don't know might think that your backer Zerg has fallen." Si Taiying's face darkened when she heard Zhou Lin's joke. Zhou Lin's heart skipped a beat when she realized this. Could it be that her guess was right? Had the Zergs really been defeated? However, this was too shocking. How could the insectoids lose? "Bitch, are you testing me on purpose?" At that moment, Si Taiying realized that Zhou Lin was trying to test her emotions. "The more embarrassed you are, the closer my guess is to the truth." Zhou Lin looked at Si Taiying. "I'm more curious as to why Zerg lost. Who defeated them?" "I won't tell you." Si Taiying snorted as she turned around and walked out. "Prepare for the wedding." After Si Taiying left, the door to the training room was closed once again. Zhou Lin returned to the window and looked out. A look of sadness appeared on her face. Zerg has already been defeated. The traitorous and independent Sky City will definitely be purged. No wonder these people are so flustered. But can't the purge come sooner? I've had enough. I want to be free. In the clouds, Qin Chuan and Lu Zi were heading towards Sky City. The closer they got to Sky City, the more anxious Qin Chuan became. He was afraid that he would see a completely different Zhou Lin. "You're very uneasy," Lu Zi said softly as she noticed the change in Qin Chuan's emotions. "You should learn to let it go." Qin Chuan smiled bitterly when he heard Lu Zi's words. He said to Lu Zi, "If it's possible, I hope that senior will always be my senior. If she really becomes a complete stranger to me, I'd rather not go to Sky City." Just as Lu Zi was about to say something to Qin Chuan, her optical computer suddenly lit up. When she saw the message on the optical computer, her expression changed slightly. "What's wrong?" Qin Chuan was curious. "Did something happen in Star Dragon City again?" "No, there's just something that I don't know how to tell you." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with a complicated expression. She said softly, "I just received news that there will be a wedding in Sky City today. The groom is Shangguan Yuanhao's disciple, Si Tying. The bride, seeing that Lu Zi was hesitating, Qinchuan's expression changed. He could not help but ask, "Who's the bride?" Lu Zi sighed and said to Qinchuan, "The bride is Zhou Lin." Qinchuan stopped moving forward. He smiled bitterly and said softly, "So it really is senior?" "Qinchuan, don't overthink it. Perhaps Zhou Lin was forced to do this." Lu Zi comforted Qinchuan. "Let's go and take a look. Perhaps things are different from what we think." Qinchuan shook his head and said softly, "Si Tying is Shangguan Yuanhao's disciple. She is also Shangguan Yuanhao's disciple. With her father's and Shangguan Yuanhao's status in Sky City, who do you think could force her to do something that she doesn't like? Moreover, even if someone forced her, can't she run away?" Lu Zi did not know what to say when she heard Qinchuan's words. Today is her wedding day. If we go to Sky City, something bad will definitely happen. Let's let Shangguan Yuanhao live for another day. Qinchuan pursed his lips and said to Lu Zi, "Let's go to Elf City to visit teacher." Seeing that Qinchuan had decided not to go to Sky City, Lu Zi did not try to persuade him any further. She allowed Qinchuan to change his route and head towards Elf City. "Quick! Everyone, hurry up! Put the chairs over there neatly." Zhou Meng sat on a chair and looked at the busy crowd in front of him. His face was filled with grief and indignation. If he had known that Shangguan Yuanhao was such a beast in human form, he would never have asked Zhou Lin to exchange for heavenly pure water to treat Shangguan Yuanhao's injuries. Shangguan Yuanhao slowly walked over and stood behind Zhou Meng. He said to Zhou Meng, "Back then, you brought Lin Lin here and made her my disciple. Today we are going to witness Lin Lin becoming Er's bride. How do you feel?" Hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's words, Zhou Meng's expression turned ferocious. Shangguan Yuanhao was going to kill him. "Do you regret helping me back then?" Shangguan Yuanhao smiled. "If you did not bring Lin Lin here to see me that day, none of this would have happened. Zhou Meng, you are the one who harmed your daughter." Shangguan Yuanhao's words were like a sharp sword that stabbed into Zhou Meng's heart. Zhou Meng was in so much pain that he could not breathe. Chapter 786. According to Shangguan Yuanhao, this was a simple wedding that only those close to him would attend. Therefore, other than Shangguan Yuanhao and Zhou Meng, there were only the two newlyweds, Si Tying and Zhou Lin. Si Tying was wearing a long red robe. She used a piece of red silk to pull Zhou Lin out. Zhou Lin had no choice but to follow Si Tying's orders as her spiritual power was sealed. "Since the bride and groom are here, let's start the ceremony." Shangguan Yuanhao stood in front of Si Tying and Zhou Lin as the master of ceremonies. He said to the two of them, "After the ceremony, send them straight to the bridal chamber." After hearing what Shangguan Yuanhao said, Si Tying's expression changed slightly. She asked, "Master, isn't this a little too fast? It's still daytime." "So what if it's daytime?" Shangguan Yuanhao said calmly, "You should focus on dual cultivation and advance to the nascent soul stage as soon as possible." When Si Tying heard Shangguan Yuanhao mention the matter of advancing to the original infant stage through dual cultivation, the uneasiness that she had been trying so hard to suppress resurfaced once again. In the past, she had been extremely eager to advance to the original infant stage. Now, she was extremely afraid of advancing to the original infant stage. She did not want to know what would happen after she advanced to the nascent soul stage. Shangguan Yuanhao looked at Si Tying, who was trembling slightly. He seemed to have noticed the uneasiness in Si Tying's heart. He smiled and patted Si Tying's shoulder gently. He said to Si Tying, You are my only disciple now. To me, you are as precious as a son. I will not harm you no matter what." After hearing what Shangguan Yuanhao said, Si Tying relaxed a little. She looked up at Shangguan Yuanhao and forced a smile. "Master, I understand. If there are no other questions, let's get married." Shangguan Yuanhao returned to his seat and sat down. He looked at Zhou Meng, who was sitting by the side and could not speak. He said softly, "You must be curious why the wedding is so simple." Zhou Meng did not respond to Shangguan Yuanhao. He closed his eyes tightly. He did not want to see his daughter and Si Tying getting married. When Shangguan Yuanhao saw this, he smiled and said to Zhou Meng, "If you're curious, why don't I tell you?" The insectoids were defeated. They were slaughtered outside Star Dragon City. Upon hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's words, Zhou Meng couldn't help but open his eyes and look at Shangguan Yuanhao in shock. Zerg was defeated? How was this possible? You also think it's a hard thing to believe, don't you? That's what I thought at the time. Zerg has an army of 300,000 and countless experts. How could he possibly lose? But that's the truth. Zerg did lose, and he lost to someone I didn't want to see the most. Shangguan Yuanhao took a deep look at Zhou Meng and said in a deep voice, "He's not dead, he's back, and he's become so strong that even Zerg can't stop him." Shangguan Yuanhao did not say his name, but Zhou Meng immediately guessed that he was Qin Chuan. Based on his understanding of Shangguan Yuanhao, in this world, only Qin Chuan could make him so disgusted and fearful. When he thought about how Qin Chuan had returned to the Star Dragon Federation and destroyed Zerg, Zhou Meng trembled in excitement. If Qin Chuan knew about Zhou Lin's current predicament, Qin Chuan would definitely go and save Zhou Lin. Seeing how excited Zhou Meng was, Shangguan Yuanhao chuckled and said to Zhou Meng, "Are you thinking that if Qin Chuan knew about your and your daughter's predicament, he would definitely come and save you?" At first, I was worried about this as well. However, I'm not worried at all now. Do you know why? Zhou Meng widened his eyes and stared at Shangguan Yuanhao. When he saw the calm smile on Shangguan Yuanhao's face, his heart could not help but sink to the bottom. Shangguan Yuanhao seemed to be very satisfied with Zhou Meng's expression. He smiled and said to Zhou Meng, "I deliberately spread the news of and your daughter's wedding. With Qin Chuan's current status, he would definitely hear about it. Do you think he would appear in Sky City without knowing about your and your daughter's predicament?" After a short pause, Shangguan Yuanhao smiled and continued, "I don't think he would appear in Sky City. Even if he wants to kill me immediately, he would definitely not come and ruining and your daughter's wedding. In his heart, he probably thinks that your daughter married willingly. Not coming to disturb her should be the last bit of kindness he would show to your daughter." After hearing Shangguan Yuanhao's words, Zhou Meng's eyes almost popped out of their sockets. If it weren't for the fact that he couldn't move his body and speak, he would have jumped up and punched Shangguan Yuanhao. He hated Shangguan Yuanhao to the core. "Do you really hate me?" Shangguan Yuanhao smiled. "Continue to hate me. I'm going to send and your daughter to the bridal chamber." As he spoke, Shangguan Yuanhao had already stood up. He said to Si Tying and Zhou Lin, who had already finished the wedding ceremony, "I've prepared a new room for the two of you in the backyard. You can go and consummate your marriage now. Work hard." Si Tying nodded and said to Shangguan Yuanhao, "I understand." Shangguan Yuanhao stood where he was and watched as Si Tying and Zhou Lin walked into the backyard. When the two of them disappeared from his sight, he could not help but look in the direction of Star Dragon City. "Give me a little more time. 3 days. Just 3 days will be enough." Monster Realm, Pegasus Station. Yao Feng sat on a chair and looked at the information that the octagonal guards had sent over. He could not help but be shocked. This is really unexpected. Who would have thought that the young man back then would grow to such a height and become the savior of all of us? Xueqiu, who was sitting to the side, smiled when she heard Yao Feng's words. She said to Yao Feng, "It seems like has good taste. Take a look at this." Yao Feng passed the information to Xueqiu. That young man kissed and hugged a human girl in front of everyone. They were very intimate. "I'm afraid that he has already forgotten about our daughter." Xueqiu's expression changed slightly when she heard Yao Feng's words. She took the information and frowned. A human girl who seems to be from the dragon clan? Yes. To be exact, she should be a mirage dragon. Yao Feng sighed and said, mirage dragons actually exist in this world. As for whether that girl is from the dragon clan or the human clan, it's not a difficult question. She should be like Qinchuan. She must have used some sort of method to transform her bloodline into the dragon clan. In reality, they are still humans. This information. Xueqiu looked at Yao Feng. What did Inger say? Yao Feng smiled and said calmly, I've already asked someone to send a copy over. As for what to do, that's Inger's problem. We don't have to worry about it. Chapter 787. The wedding night was supposed to be beautiful. However, it was torturous for both Si Taing and Zhou Lin. Si Taing sat on the edge of the bed and looked at Zhou Lin in front of her. She raised her hand but could not lift the veil on Zhou Lin's head. It was as if what was hidden under the veil was not a beautiful face but a ferocious and ugly demon. In the end, Si Taing mustered up her courage and lifted the veil on Zhou Lin's head. When he saw Zhou Lin's unadorned face, he could not help but feel excited. The temptation of her beauty had temporarily overcome the fear in his heart. No matter what was going to happen the next day, he should enjoy himself now. Are you really not afraid at all? Or do you want to die? Just as Si Taing was about to attack Zhou Lin after suppressing her uneasiness and frustration, Zhou Lin suddenly spoke. Once again, Si Taing's uneasiness and frustration came out. Si Taing's expression changed when she heard Zhou Lin's words. She asked, What do you mean? Don't you know what I mean? Zhou Lin pursed her lips and said to Si Taing, If you touch me now, I'll lose my virginity at most. However, you'll lose your life. Do you really think that Shangguan Yuanhao is holding this wedding for us out of the goodness of his heart? Si Taing's expression changed again when she heard Zhou Lin's words. She could not help but ask, What are you trying to say? What I'm trying to say is that the day you advance to the original infant stage will be the day you die. Zhou Lin stared deeply at Si Taing. Don't you realize that something is wrong? Shangguan Yuanhao's desire for you. Nonsense. Si Taing was extremely emotional. He's my teacher and I'm his disciple. He treats me like his own son. Do you really believe these lies? Zhou Lin laughed coldly. If you're really not afraid and trust Shangguan Yuanhao unconditionally, then do it. After saying this, Zhou Lin closed her eyes and pushed her chest towards Si Taing. Si Taing's expression became extremely ferocious when he saw this. He extended his hand towards Zhou Lin's chest but stopped in the end. After struggling for a while, Si Taing put down his hand and asked Zhou Lin, What do you have in mind? Zhou Lin slowly opened her eyes when she heard Si Taing. She looked at Si Taing and said softly, Let's put on an act and work together to deceive Shangguan Yuanhao. Si looked at Zhou Lin. Tutu to be. Tutu to be to. Qinchuan? Zhou Lin replied subconsciously when she heard Si Taing's words. Si Taing pursed her lips when she saw the shocked expression on Zhou Lin's face. She said softly, Qinchuan has returned. He has become extremely powerful. Zerg was defeated by Qinchuan. Zhou Lin became excited when she heard Si Taing's words. She asked in surprise, Qinchuan has returned? Are you telling the truth? It's true. The reason why my teacher was so anxious to get us married and for me to advance to the original infant stage was because he felt threatened by Qinchuan. Si Taing smiled bitterly. Although I don't know what it means for my teacher to advance to the original infant stage, I'm certain that I will die when the time comes. He's still alive. That's great. That's great. Zhou Lin mumbled softly. She was so excited that she could not help but cry softly. In the past, she had reunited with Qinchuan in her dreams. She had originally thought that all of this could only exist in her dreams. She did not expect that today, she would see the possibility of her dreams becoming reality. Don't be too happy. My teacher had already expected this. He purposely spread the news. Perhaps Qinchuan will not come to the Sky Castle anytime soon. Si Tying sighed. We can only take a gamble now. There was no turning back for Si Tying now. She could only resign herself to fate. Whether Qinchuan comes to Sky City or not, I won't let Shangguan Yuanhao's plan succeed. Zhou Lin said firmly. No matter what, I will not cause any more trouble for Qinchuan. Black Moon Mountain Range. As usual, the air traffic control forces were patrolling around Kargad. Ever since the riot that day, Kargad had been extremely quiet as usual. Just when everyone thought that today would be as peaceful as usual, a huge fleet suddenly appeared in the distant sky. Bang, 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 bang. Is that Zerg's battleship? The air traffic control unit immediately discovered the fleet approaching from afar and immediately issued a warning signal to the command center. Enemy attack. Boom. The Beetle's energy cannon shot from afar and hit the air traffic control team's battleship. The battleship exploded in the sky like a brilliant firework. The roar of the cannons awakened the entire elven city. When everyone looked up at the sky and saw the huge fleet slowly advancing in the darkness, everyone's face was filled with extreme fear. The insectoids had clearly been defeated, so why was there another insectoid army here? At that moment, the air traffic control team's command center was in a mess. The appearance of Zerg's fleet was completely unexpected and caught them off guard. This fleet shouldn't be the remnants of Zerg's army. Sha Zhao stared at the monitor screen and said to Hua Wuying, who was standing beside him, "They should be from World Mountain." Hua Wuying nodded heavily and said in a deep voice, "In the current banished land, only World Mountain has a complete Zerg fleet. They must have heard the news of Zerg's defeat and quietly left World Mountain to come here. Their target is Kargad. Kargad is their only chance to turn the tables. With Zerg's current situation, they must have a strong leader to support them. Kargad was undoubtedly the best choice. We must stop them." Sha Zhao looked deeply at Hua Wuying. "I'll take people to stop them. You take people to set up a defense line near Kargad. I've already sent a distress signal to Star Dragon City. They will come as soon as possible. But before that, we must hold on." Hua Wuying looked at Sha Zhao and said in a low voice, "Old friend, don't die." Sha Zhao laughed and said to Hua Wuying, "You should worry about yourself. I won't die." Chapter 788. Sun Na stood on the deck of the battleship and looked at the huge figure standing on the ground in the distance. Her eyes flashed with excitement as she excitedly said to the people around her, "The humans' defense here is really weak. As long as we attack with all our strength, we can definitely defeat the humans' defense in the shortest amount of time and rescue General Kargad." Hearing Sun Na's words, the faces of the Zerg generals were also filled with excitement. As long as they could rescue General Kargad, they would have nothing to fear. "Everyone, listen to my orders. When you see any humans, kill them immediately. Don't leave anyone alive. We have to rush to General Kargad's side as fast as possible." Following Sun Na's order, the fleet immediately moved. All the generals led their subordinates and rushed towards the humans' air traffic control forces. The air traffic control forces were originally formed by the city's defenders and the rebels. Their fighting strength wasn't very strong. Under the attack of Zerg's fleet, they were instantly defeated. However, not all the air traffic control forces were so weak. The small group led by Sha Zhao caused a great disturbance to the advance of Zerg's fleet. Sun Na, who was guarding the main ship, also noticed Sha Zhao immediately. "I'll take care of this annoying thing," Sun Na shouted. Her figure flashed as she left the main ship and went straight for Sha Zhao. The moment Sun Na moved, Sha Zhao sensed Sun Na's killing intent. Before Sun Na even got close to Sha Zhao, she opened her mouth and spat out a ball of scarlet mucus towards Sha Zhao. It shot towards Sha Zhao like a cannonball. Facing Sun Na's attack, Sha Zhao subconsciously dodged. However, just as he dodged the ball of scarlet mucus, Sun Na's figure suddenly replaced the ball of scarlet mucus and appeared in front of him. Die! Sun Na laughed sinisterly. She raised her hand and stabbed her sharp insect leg into Sha Zhao's heart. Poochie! The sharp insect leg stabbed into Sha Zhao's heart. However, no blood flowed out. Sha Zhao's figure suddenly became blurry and disappeared in the blink of an eye. The moment Sha Zhao's figure disappeared, an extremely frightening wave of spiritual energy exploded above Sun Na's head. Sun Na, who was defenseless, was pushed to the ground and smashed into it with a loud bang. Sha Zhao slowly appeared in the sky. Looking at the dust on the ground, he sneered. "You're too naive if you want to ambush me." "Really?" A gloomy voice arose behind Sha Zhao. Right after that, a sharp insect leg pierced through Sha Zhao's back and came out from his chest. The fierce pain made Sha Zhao grimace. Instinctively, he wanted to counterattack. However, his body was so numb that it didn't listen to his command. At this moment, the dust on the ground had dispersed. When Sha Zhao saw the scarlet mucus lying in the deep pit, he understood everything. However, it was too late for him to figure it out. If it was in the past, I might have been interested in persuading you to surrender. But now I really don't have that interest. Sun Na sneered. The insect leg that pierced through Sha Zhao's chest suddenly exploded, turning Sha Zhao into a cloud of blood mist. In the distance, Hua Wuying, who was arranging people to set up a defensive line, suddenly turned her head to look at Zerg's fleet in the distance. Her face was filled with shock. Sha Zhao, he died? When she sensed that Sha Zhao's aura had completely disappeared from this world, Hua Wuying's face couldn't help but become sad. Her old friends had left this world one by one. Perhaps she would be the next. In the sky more than 10,000 kilometers away from the Elf City, Lu Zi's optical computer suddenly vibrated. When she saw the message on the optical computer, her face couldn't help but become extremely ugly. Qinchuan, Zerg's fleet from Jieshan has ambushed the Elf City. Qinchuan, who was walking beside Lu Zi, heard the news and his face suddenly changed. He almost subconsciously increased his speed. Zerg's fleet must have ambushed the Elf City to save Kargard. Lu Zi quickly said to Qinchuan, "They must want to borrow Kargard's power to turn the tables." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qinchuan frowned and asked, "Who is Kargard?" Lu Zi was about to explain Kargard's background to Qinchuan when she suddenly remembered that Qinchuan still didn't know that Ning Zhongtian had died. She looked at Qinchuan with a complicated gaze and said in a low voice, "Kargard is a Zerg expert that was sealed in the Black Moon mountain range 10,000 years ago. He broke the seal a while ago. In order to seal Kargard again, your advisor Senior Ning sacrificed himself." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Qinchuan couldn't help but stop moving forward. He looked at Lu Zi in shock and asked, "Advisor is dead?" Lu Zi nodded and said to Qinchuan, "Originally, we wanted to wait for Teacher Ning to wake up and let him tell you personally. We didn't mean to hide it from you." Ning Zhongtian's death was something that Qinchuan found very hard to accept. Although he didn't spend much time with Ning Zhongtian, he had always respected Ning Zhongtian. When he thought of Ning Zhongtian leaving this world, he felt a wave of sadness in his heart. However, now was not the time for him to feel sad. There were still many important people in the Elf City waiting for him to save them. "Qinchuan, don't be too agitated." Lu Zi said to Qinchuan, "Calm down." Qinchuan looked at Lu Zi and asked, "That Kagid killed advisor, then teacher's coma is also related to him, right?" Lu Zi nodded. "Teacher Ning is indeed unconscious because of Kagid you." Before Lu Zi could finish speaking, Qinchuan's figure had already rushed towards the Elf City again. This time, his speed was even faster than before. Rumble! Following an earth-shattering roar, the last warship of the air traffic control fleet was also destroyed under the bombardment of Zerg's fleet. Under Sun Na's leadership, Zerg's fleet had already arrived less than 10,000 meters away from Kagad. It was also here that they encountered Hua Wuying. Here comes another ant blocking the way. Sun Na looked at Hua Wuying with disdain and asked, "You should be in cahoots with that guy just now, right?" Hua Wuying looked deeply at Sun Na and said in a deep voice, "So you're the one who killed Sha Zhao. So that guy's name is Sha Zhao. He's just a slightly stronger ant. If I want to kill him, I only need to move my finger slightly." Sun Na sneered and looked sharply at Hua Wuying, "And now, I'm going to move my finger again and crush you to death." Chapter 789. Hua Wuying was never a person who liked to talk nonsense. Facing the powerful Sun Na, not only was she not afraid, she chose to make the first move to gain the upper hand. Whoosh! Hua Wuying's figure flashed and turned into hundreds of shadows in the air. They all attacked Sun Na at the same time. The spiritual energy fluctuations of each attack were extremely powerful, and it was impossible to tell if they were real or fake. Facing Hua Wuying's attack, Sun Na sneered. Pieces of crimson armor suddenly appeared on the surface of her body. In an instant, she was completely wrapped up and turned into a battle armor. At the same time, Hua Wuying's attack also hit Sun Na. However, the powerful spiritual energy did not cause any damage to Sun Na. Even Sun Na's battle armor was not damaged in the slightest. Hua Wuying was not surprised by this because this was originally her probing attack. It was normal that it did not work. If Sun Na was so easily injured by her attack, then Sha Zhao would not have died. Dazzling 100 flowers! Hua Wuying shouted, and the spiritual energy in her body surged. Countless pink petals fell from the sky and revolved around Sun Na. These petals looked beautiful, but they were actually filled with murderous intent. Each petal contained a shocking amount of spiritual energy. As long as it was touched, it would explode. The power of thousands of petals exploding was enough to raise the elf city to the ground. Seeing these flying petals, Sun Na could not help but sneer and say with disdain, "Insignificant skill." Before she finished speaking, Sun Na opened her mouth and spat out a clump of scarlet-red mucus. This mucus unceasingly rolled and surged in the air, before suddenly splitting into countless tiny particles that shot out in all directions, colliding with those flower petals. In an instant, those flower petals were swept clean, completely not giving those flower petals a chance to explode. After sweeping away the flower petals, those mucus particles took advantage of the momentum and shot towards those flower mist shadow doppelgangers in the air, carrying out an indiscriminate attack on all of them. However, what was strange was that when the mucus particles hit Hua Wuying's body, they directly passed through her body and did not cause any damage to her. Not only that, the petals that were swept away by the mucus particles appeared around Sun Na again. Moreover, they quickly rotated and shot towards Sun Na like sharp blades. Hua Wuying was actually giving Su Na a taste of her own medicine, and wanted to use the same method to retaliate against Su Na. However, before these petals could hit Su Na, an extremely powerful force suddenly erupted from Su Na's body, smashing the rapidly spinning petals to pieces like a meat grinder. "It seems like you're stronger than Sha Zhao. Anyway, it ends here. I don't have time to play with you anymore." Sun Na seemed to have lost interest in continuing to play with Hua Wuying. Her figure suddenly flickered, and in the next moment, she appeared on the left side of the sky, arriving in front of one of Hua Wuying's doppelgangers. "This is your true body, right?" Sun Na roared and suddenly punched out. Her fist was covered with sharp barbs as it fiercely smashed into Hua Mistying's chest. This time, Sun Na's attack did not penetrate Hua Mistying's body. Instead, it solidly hit Hua Mistying's chest. "Poochie!" Hua Wuying spat out a mouthful of blood and retreated. At the same time, the clones that filled the sky gradually dissipated. She looked at Su Na in shock, as if she could not believe that Suan Na could actually lock onto her true body so accurately. Are you surprised? Suan Na sneered, however, I won't explain too much to you. Die with a heart full of doubts. Before she finished speaking, Suan Na once again launched an attack on Hua Misting. She condensed power in her hands and released an extremely destructive energy wave that shot towards Hua Misting. Hua Misting saw Suan Na's action and subconsciously wanted to dodge. However, at this moment, she discovered that her body had become incomparably numb, and was completely out of her control. She could only watch as Suan Na's energy wave came closer and closer to her. Boom! The energy wave accurately hit Hua Misting. Hua Misting's life force instantly dropped to the extreme, and her shattered body fell straight to the ground. Seeing Hua Misting's falling body, Suan Na did not have any intention of chasing. Killing Hua Misting was something that could be done at any time. Right now, the most important thing for her was to rescue General Kargad. Whoosh! Suan Na flew towards Kargad at an extremely fast speed. Along the way, no one stopped her. In less than a minute, she arrived in front of Kargad. Looking at Kargad, who had his eyes slightly closed, Suan Na respectfully knelt on one knee and said in an extremely careful tone, General Kargad, I am the commander of the Crimson Army, Suan Na. I have specially come to rescue you. Hearing Suan Na's words, Kargad slowly opened his eyes and looked at Suan Na indifferently. I want to know what happened not long ago. Suan Na immediately replied, An extremely powerful cultivator appeared in the human race and defeated our holy race's army. I was leading a team that was sent out to carry out a mission, so we managed to escape. Suan Na briefly told Kargad what she knew. After listening to Suan Na's narration, a cold light flashed in Kargad's eyes, and he said in a deep voice, That was not a human powerhouse, but a dragon powerhouse. Dragon? Suan Na was extremely shocked. The one who defeated our holy race's army was a dragon? You did not choose to escape from the banished land, but chose to come and save me. This is the right decision. Kargad said to Suan Na, If I want to break the seal, I need a large amount of blood. The blood of cultivators, the blood of ordinary people, I want all of it. Suan Na immediately replied, There is a human city nearby. I will go and collect enough blood for you. No, it's too late. Kargad suddenly turned his head and looked into the distance. He sensed an extremely powerful aura rapidly approaching here. It was too late to go and collect blood from two city now. Suan Na's perception was not as strong as Kargad's, but she could see some clues from Kargad's expression. She thought that there should be a human powerhouse arriving soon. Let your subordinates carry out the blood sacrifice. Kargad looked back at Suan Na. This is the only way now. Suan Na was shocked when she heard Kargad's words. She did not expect Kargad to make such a shocking request, but facing the situation before her, she could not refuse. She could only brace herself and say, Please, please wait a moment, I will go and arrange it. Hearing this, Kargad slowly closed his eyes and said in a low voice, Hurry up. I can't wait to move freely in this world. Chapter 790. After clearing away all obstacles, the Zerg fleet gathered less than a kilometer away from Kargad. All the Zerg soldiers looked at Kargad with fervent and worshipful gazes. This was the founder of the Crimson Army, the soul and faith of their army. Suan Na stood in front of everyone and looked around. She said to everyone, Soldiers of the holy race, General Kargad needs our help. Are you willing to sacrifice your lives to save General Kargad? Hearing Suan Na's words, everyone's expression became even more fervent. They shouted loudly, We are willing. Yes, they were willing to sacrifice themselves to save General Kargad. Hearing everyone's shouts, Suan Na looked deeply at everyone and said loudly, Then, let the blood sacrifice begin. Following Suan Na's words, without needing anyone else to do anything, the fervent soldiers had already taken their own lives. The boiling hot blood splashed onto Kargard, who was not far away. The blood swirled in the air, and condensed into a ball before flying towards Kargard and adhering to the sturdy seal. As more and more soldiers committed suicide, the amount of blood that was gathered on the seal also increased. Kargard's aura also became stronger and stronger, and there were faint signs that he was about to break out of the seal. This caused the expressions on the faces of Suna and the other high-ranking officers to become excited. As long as Kargard was able to break out of the seal, they would be able to blow the horn for a counterattack. In the distance, Qin Chuan, who was rushing over, suddenly stopped. He looked ahead with bewilderment and asked Lu Zi in a grave tone, "There's a strong smell of blood in front. And who is that aura?" Qin Chuan could clearly sense an extremely terrifying aura slowly awakening in front of them. It was so powerful that he could not help but tremble. Kargard is sealed in that direction. This should be Kargard awakening. LVZ's face was also full of shock. She knew that Kargard was very strong, but she never thought that Kargard would be so strong to the point where people couldn't even think of resisting. Even if she and Qin Chuan worked together, they would definitely not be a match for Kargard. No wonder Grand Master wanted to seal this guy even if he had to sacrifice himself. Qin Chuan pursed his lips. His strength has surpassed the limits of this world. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Lu Zi couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan and whisper, "Qin Chuan, let's go to the Elf City now and take Teacher Ning away." As for the rest, Lu Zi knew that her thoughts were selfish, but she really didn't want Qin Chuan to take risk. "You go and take the teacher away, I'll go and stop Kagad." Qin Chuan looked deeply at Lu Zi. "Believe me, I won't lose." After saying this, Qin Chuan directly flew towards Qin Chuan. Lu Zi reached out to stop him, but she could only watch as Qin Chuan's figure flew into the distance. In less than 10 minutes, the insectoid army of 50,000 had been reduced to less than 5,000. With Kargard as the epicenter, the stench of blood in the surroundings was so thick that it was nauseating. There was even a thin layer of blood mist that permeated the air, and the sacrifice of a large number of Zerg's soldiers in exchange for the power of the seal becoming weaker and weaker. Kargard's aura became stronger and stronger, even faintly covering this part of the world. "Someone's coming." Sun Na frowned as she looked into the distance. She could clearly see a small black dot quickly approaching them. When she sensed that the other party was only at the early nascent soul stage, Sun Na couldn't help but reveal a disdainful smile. She said to the deputies beside her, "Go and kill him." Following Sun Na's order, the two deputies standing beside Sun Na immediately rushed towards the rapidly approaching black dot. But before they could get close to the black dot, 2 lightning bolts suddenly fell from the sky and accurately bombarded their heads, turning them into ashes on the spot. Seeing this scene, Sun Na's expression couldn't help but change slightly. Her body suddenly moved to the left side, and at the same time, a lightning bolt fiercely bombarded the place she was previously standing at, causing an extremely violent explosion. Whoosh! A blurry figure suddenly appeared in front of Sun Na, and with lightning speed punched out, bombarding Sun Na's chest. The powerful force almost instantly penetrated Sun Na's chest, and a large amount of blood gushed out. Along with the blood of the Zerg soldiers who had committed suicide, the blood floated towards Kargard, who was not far away. Sun Na looked at the figure in front of her in disbelief. She opened her mouth to say something, but in the end, not a single word came out. After dealing with Sun Na, Qin Chuan slowly turned around and looked at Kargard, whose whole body had turned scarlet. His face flashed with a touch of coldness and said in a deep voice, "You are Kargard." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Kargard slowly raised his eyes and looked at Qin Chuan and said in an indifferent tone, "I have once sensed your aura. It is the aura of the loathsome dragon clan. Your aura is also very loathsome to me. Compared to these guys, you are just a slightly bigger bug." Qin Chuan looked at Kargard coldly, and suddenly raised his hand and waved at Kargard. the powerful force dissipated in the air before it even got close to Kargard. You came too late. Now there is no one who can stop me from breaking the seal, not even those people from back then. Kargard looked deeply at Qinchuan. Hand over the Dragon Balls, and perhaps I will let you die a quick death. You want the Dragon Balls? Then rely on your own ability to get them. Qinchuan roared angrily, and directly released his complete form. The spiritual energy in his body suddenly erupted, forming an azure spiritual energy fluctuation around him. His aura was incomparably shocking, and even from thousands of miles away, people could clearly sense his existence. Sword, come! With a thought from Qinchuan, the Milky Way sword appeared in his hand. Under the support of the Milky Way sword intent, a sword chi that blotted out the sky slashed directly at Kargard. The strength of this sword chi was enough to turn the land within 1,000 miles into nothingness in an instant. Facing Qinchuan's powerful attack, Kargard had no intention of resisting at all. He actually allowed the sword chi to slash his body. When the sword chi fell, the seal on Kargard's body also made a cracking sound and shattered with a loud bang. Boom! The moment the seal shattered, Kargard's aura soared into the sky like a geyser, and the turbulent aura rushed out in all directions like a wave. Qinchuan was like a small boat floating in the sea of aura, drifting about in a miserable state. Freedom! Ha ha, freedom! Kargard's crazy and sharp laughter resounded between heaven and earth. The General Kargard, who had terrorized the human clan and the elf clan 10,000 years ago, had returned. Chapter 791. This is, in the Elf City. Lucy looked in the direction of the Black Moon mountain range in shock. Her face was full of shock. Kargard broke through the seal. His aura is much stronger than Qinchuan's. Thinking of this, Lucy couldn't help but look at Ningya, who was lying unconscious on the bed. She had to send Ningya to a safe place as soon as possible and then go back to help Qinchuan. With Qinchuan's strength alone, it was definitely impossible for him to be Kargard's opponent. Just as Lucy was bringing Ningya to a safe place, the entire elf city was in chaos. Everyone was fleeing in the opposite direction of the Black Moon mountain range in fear. These people didn't even have the courage to look back in the direction of the Black Moon mountain range. At this time, Star Dragon City was also filled with killing intent. Although they had just defeated Zerg's army, Kargard's sudden breaking of the seal had brought great psychological pressure to everyone. To them, Kargard was definitely more terrifying than Zerg's army of 300,000. Qinchuan should be in the Elf City now. With his strength, he should be able to temporarily block Kargard. As long as the reinforcements arrive, everything will be fine. Qin Ju frowned fiercely. Although she was very confident in Qinchuan's strength, she still couldn't help but worry for Qinchuan. She was afraid that Qinchuan would lose to Kargard. If Qinchuan was defeated before the reinforcements arrived, then no one would be able to stop Kargard. At that time, what awaited them would be death without any hope. Our reinforcements are already on their way through the teleportation array. In half a day, there will be experts arriving at the Elf City. This time, Chairman Gaoen is personally leading the team. He will definitely be able to defeat Kargard. At the very least, he can help Long Fei seal Kargard again. Yuna looked at Qin Ju and comforted him. Although she knew that her words were pale and powerless, she didn't know what else to do other than say them. Qin Ju knew that what Yuna said made sense, but she still couldn't help but worry. At this moment, someone brought her another piece of bad news. General, Kagid and Qinchuan have already started fighting. Hearing his subordinate's report, Qin Ju immediately asked anxiously, "How's the situation?" Qinchuan's aura has been completely drowned out by Kargard's aura. For now, we don't know what's going on with Qinchuan. The subordinate's words were like a heavy hammer that smashed onto Qinchuan's head, causing him to feel dizzy for a moment. After waking up, The first thing she did was to immediately set off for the elf city. She had to go to the scene and support Qin Chuan. In Great Xia City, which was less than 4,000 kilometers away from Elf City, dozens of human powerhouses led by Gaoan had just walked out of the teleportation array when their expressions suddenly became extremely terrified. What a powerful aura! This. Everyone looked in the direction of the Elf City in shock. Their mouths were wide open, but they couldn't say a word. This evil aura must be Kagid. He has broken through the seal. Gaoan said to everyone in an extremely solemn tone, "We have to rush over as soon as possible." Hearing Gaoan's words, someone couldn't help but say, "Chairman, Kagid is too strong. If we go over, we'll just be sending ourselves to our deaths." "But Qin Chuan is still over there," Gaoan said angrily. "He just saved all of us. Are you going to betray him now?" When everyone heard Gaoan's angry roar, a subtle expression appeared on their faces. Of course, they didn't want to betray Qin Chuan, but in the face of such a situation where they were almost certain to die, who would be willing to take the risk? No wonder you need a junior like Qin Chuan to save you at such an old age. Look at all of you, you really don't have any prospects at all. Long Fei snorted coldly. My Long family will definitely go to the Elf City to support Qin Chuan. If you don't dare to go, then just turn around and leave. After saying this, Long Fei didn't wait for the others to respond and walked toward the next teleportation circle. Gao En and Long Fei walked together. Seeing this, the others could only helplessly follow after looking at each other. If they cowered now, what difference would there be between them and those traitors in Sky City? Sky City. Shangguan Yuanhao also immediately received information about Star Dragon City. He knew that Kagid had broken through the seal and was already fighting with Qin Chuan, who had rushed back to the Elf City. Now the outcome was unknown. However, from the description of Kagid in the information, Qin Chuan was definitely going to lose. If Qin Chuan dies in this battle, could it save me a lot of trouble? I just don't know if this Kagid will be difficult to get along with. Shangguan Yuanhao slightly narrowed his eyes. Now that Ka Feng was dead, he had betrayed the Star Dragon Federation and was no longer with the human race. Now, the only person he could rely on was Zerg. Thinking of this, Shangguan Yuanhao slowly turned his head and looked at the gorgeous woman standing behind him. He asked, "How's Ing Er's cultivation?" "He's working very hard, and Zhou Lin is also very cooperative. I think it won't be long before both of them reach the nascent soul stage." Hearing the gorgeous woman's answer, Shangguan Yuanhao nodded slightly and said, "Keep an eye on them. I don't want any accidents to happen at this time." Dragon Spirit Lake. Lu Zi directly rushed into the lake with Ningya in her arms and arrived in front of Tsang Hao. "Senior, I want to put Teacher Ning with you first." Lu Zi placed Ningya in a clamshell and turned to Tsang Hao. "I'm going to support Qin Chuan." Hearing Lu Zi's words, Tsang Hao looked deeply at Lu Zi and said, "Kargard is very strong. You and Qin Chuan are no match for him." Lu Zi pursed her lips and said, "I know, but I have to go. Even if I die, I want to die together with Qin Chuan." "Is it worth it?" Tsang Hao looked at Lu Zi. "He never said he loved you." Lu Zi shook her head and said in a low voice, "It's enough as long as I love him." Saying this, Lu Zi was about to rush outside. At this moment, Tsang Hao stopped her and sighed. "Hui Tong has already gone to support Qin Chuan. Tell them to lead Kargard to the Dragon Spirit Lake." Hearing Tsang Hao's words, Lu Zi couldn't help but reveal an extremely shocked expression. She asked, "Senior? You're going to make a move?" Thinking back, I once fought with Kargard. Although I lost, Kargard only won by a narrow margin. Now that 10,000 years have passed, I want to see if Kargard has made any progress. Tsang Hao's face revealed a look of determination. "This old man isn't dead yet. How can I let you little guys charge into the enemy's ranks?" Lu Zi was overjoyed when she heard this and immediately said to Tsang Hao, I understand. We'll definitely lead Kargard here. Chapter 792. In the sky, Qin Chuan looked at Kargad's huge body in disbelief. His face was filled with shock. Kargad's aura was still growing stronger and stronger. It was even faintly surpassing the limits of this world. At this moment, Kargad was like a mountain that pierced through the clouds in Qin Chuan's eyes. It was as if he was going to poke a hole in the sky. And he was a small tree growing beside this mountain. He was unremarkable. Dragon Lord! Just as Qin Chuan was shocked, Hui Tong's figure suddenly appeared beside him. Hui Tong's face was filled with seriousness. Qin Chuan looked at Hui Tong, who suddenly appeared. He pursed his lips and said in a low voice, You shouldn't have come. In Qin Chuan's eyes, even if he and Hui Tong worked together, they would definitely not be Kargad's match. Hui Tong coming over now was just accompanying him to his death. Dragon Lord is in trouble. How can I sit by and do nothing? Moreover, it's not like we don't have any chance of winning. Hui Tong said to Qin Chuan, Dragon Lord, use the Dragon Ball to deal with Kargad. Hearing Hui Tong's words, Qin Chuan bitterly smiled and said somewhat helplessly, Of course I know that the Dragon Ball can play a certain role. However, the Dragon Ball is not under my control right now. I can't control the Dragon Ball to fight the enemy. The reason why I was able to instantly kill hundreds of thousands of Zerg's army in Star Dragon City was purely because the Dragon Ball acted on its own. It had nothing to do with me. After the Battle of Star Dragon City, Qin Chuan had tried to control the Dragon Ball. However, the Dragon Ball was like a luminous pearl in his hands. Aside from emitting light, there was nothing special about it. Even if he tried using the chant of Dragon Ball 9 transformations, it was useless. Helpless, Qin Chuan temporarily put the matter of controlling the Dragon Ball aside. If it wasn't for this reason, he would have already taken out the Dragon Ball to deal with Kargad. Hearing Qin Chuan's explanation, Hui Tong's expression couldn't help but change. He said with some surprise, The Dragon Ball is actually not under Dragon Lord's control? How can this be? Now is not the time to talk about this. Qin Chuan gritted his teeth and looked at Kargad in front of him. He said to Hui Tong, It's not too late for you to leave now. Although I'm not his match, I can hold him off for a while. Dragon Master, Qin Chuan, Senior Hui Tong. At this moment, Lu Zi's figure suddenly appeared. When Qin Chuan saw Lu Zi's figure, he frowned and said, Didn't I tell you to take teacher away? Why won't you listen? Lu Zi hurriedly said to Qin Chuan, I sent teacher Ning to the Dragon Spirit Lake. Senior Tsang Hao told me to lure Kargard to the Dragon Spirit Lake. He has a way to deal with Kargard. Hearing the news brought by Lu Zi, Qin Chuan couldn't help but reveal a look of shock as he asked, You said that Senior Tsang Hao can deal with Kargad. Isn't he still sealed? I don't know the details, but boom! Before Lu Zi could finish speaking, a red energy ball suddenly shot over from afar. It accurately hit Qin Chuan and the powerful impact instantly pushed Qin Chuan back several thousand meters. Seeing this scene, Lu Zi and Hui Tong didn't even have time to react before two more energy balls shot over. They accurately hit them and pushed them back together. However, compared to Qin Chuan, their situation was even more miserable. Pooh! LVZ spat out a mouthful of blood as she stared fixedly at Kargard. Her face was filled with horror. Kargard had nearly taken her life with a casual strike. This kind of power was simply too tyrannical and unreasonable. So, Qin Chuan's figure suddenly appeared beside Lu Zi. He hugged Lu Zi and said to Lu Zi, Are you okay? Lu Zi shook her head and said to Qin Chuan, He's really too strong. At this time, Hui Tong also came to their side and said in a deep voice, He still hasn't completely familiarized himself with controlling his power. Otherwise, he would have been able to kill us in an instant. After all, Kargard had been sealed for tens of thousands of years. If he wanted to fully recover to his peak state, he still needed some time to familiarize himself with it. This period of time was the most precious opportunity for Qin Chuan and the others to escape. It was precisely because he saw this point that Kargard immediately attacked Qin Chuan and the others after controlling some of his power. He wanted to keep Qin Chuan and the others here. As the strongest among the three, Qin Chuan wasn't injured. However, he had spent a lot of energy blocking that attack. When he heard Hui Tong's words, he also realized that they would completely lose the ability to resist once Kargard recovered to his peak state. Therefore, they had to lure Kargard to the Dragon Spirit Lake before he fully recovered and borrowed Song Hao's power to deal with Kargard. "Let's go to the Dragon Spirit Lake." Qin Chuan made a prompt decision. He immediately carried Lu Zi and flew in the direction of the Dragon Spirit Lake. Hui Tong followed closely behind. At this time, Kargard, who was gradually mastering his power, noticed that Qin Chuan and the others were retreating. He couldn't help but laugh coldly and ask, "Where are you going?" As Kargard's voice fell, an extremely terrifying gust of wind suddenly swept over, enveloping Qin Chuan and the other two. The three of them were practically unable to move forward in an instant as they were trapped within the gust of wind and waves. At the same time, Kargard attacked again. The power of this attack was several times stronger than before. Even with Qin Chuan's strength, he would probably be seriously injured. Lu Zi and Hui Tong would definitely die. At this critical moment, Qin Chuan angrily said, "I have information about the Sacred Armor King." Just as Qin Chuan's voice left his mouth, the terrifying power that had already arrived in front of them suddenly stopped. Looking at the huge energy ball that was less than a meter away from him, Hui Tong really experienced what it meant to be the difference between heaven and hell. "What did you just say?" Kargard stared at Qin Chuan, as if he suspected that he had heard wrongly. Qin Chuan took a deep breath and said, "I said I have information about the Sacred Armor King. You didn't hear wrongly. It's the Sacred Armor King that can make you a holy lord." Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Kargard asked in a deep voice, "How do you know about the existence of the Sacred Armor King?" Although Kargard was trying his best to maintain his emotional stability, Qin Chuan could still hear that Kargard was very excited. Clearly, the Sacred Armor King had a fatal attraction to Kargard. "I once met a Zerg. She was the one who told me." Qin Chuan pursed his lips and said to Kargard, "Let the two of them go, and I'll tell you where the Sacred Armor King is. If I lie to you, you can kill me directly." To Kargard, Qin Chuan and the others were ants that he could crush at any time. However, he had to obtain information about the Sacred Armor King no matter what. Chapter 793. You better not lie to me. Kargard looked deeply at Qin Chuan, then casually removed the wind and waves that trapped Qin Chuan and the other two, allowing them to regain their freedom. "Qin Chuan, don't." Lu Zi looked at Qin Chuan with an extremely anxious gaze. She didn't want Qin Chuan to stay here alone. "Don't say any more. You and Senior Hui Tong immediately leave this place and head to the Dragon Spirit Lake. I will naturally deal with the rest." Qin Chuan reached out to help Lu Zi tidy up her messy hair and said seriously, "Don't let your emotions affect your decisions. This time, you must listen to me." After realizing that Kargard was determined to obtain the Sacred Armor King, Qin Chuan was confident that he could preserve his life. However, if Lu Zi and Hui Tong continued to stay here, they would definitely become hostages that Kargard would use to threaten him. Therefore, he had to send Lu Zi and Hui Tong away first. "Lu Zi, listen to Dragon Lord. If we stay, we will only drag him down." Hui Tong was a very clear-headed and self-aware person. Qin Chuan couldn't use the power of the Dragon Balls to fight against Kargard. Then, he and Lu Zi wouldn't be of any use if they stayed here, other than dragging Qin Chuan down. It was better to leave in time. This way, Qin Chuan could also relax a bit. Luzi opened her mouth, but in the end, she didn't say anything willful or irrational. She turned around and flew towards the Dragon Spirit Lake. Qin Chuan looked at Lu Zi's departing figure and sighed softly. He said to Hui Tong, Senior, take good care of her. Hui Tong nodded and said to Qin Chuan, Dragon Lord, take care of yourself. After Hui Tong and Lu Zi left, Kargard couldn't help but say to Qin Chuan, all right, now that I have let the two of them go, shouldn't you also show your sincerity? If I find out that you're toying with me, I'll make you wish you were dead. Don't worry. My life is in your hands. I'm not joking around with my life. Qin Chuan gave Kagad a deep look. Moreover, you also need time to recover your strength, don't you think? Hearing this, Kargard sneered. Now that I've recovered 70% of my strength, I can sweep through the banished land. You're already so powerful at 70%. If you want to recover your full strength, I'm afraid you won't be accepted by this world. Qin Chuan said softly, You don't dare, do you? Kargad coldly snorted and said, Although the laws of heaven and earth in the land of exile are not complete, they still have a very strong restrictive effect on me. If it weren't for this, how could I have been sealed so easily 10,000 years ago? I see. Qin Chuan said in a low voice, In that case, you can only display 70% of your strength in this world. Once you exceed this value, you will be rejected by the laws of heaven and earth. Perhaps something bad will happen to you, right? Hearing Qin Chuan's guess, Kargard couldn't help but look at Qin Chuan with a subtle expression. He said in a deep voice, You're right, but so what? As the strongest person in this world, you have been completely crushed by me. No one can force me to use more strength. Without waiting for Qin Chuan to speak, Kargard continued to say to Qin Chuan, All right, let's end the chat here. They have run far enough. You should tell me about the Sacred Armor King. Qin Chuan slightly pursed his lips and said to Kargard, The Sacred Armor King is in my body. He has already recognized me as his master. Without waiting for Qin Chuan's voice to fall, Kargard coldly said, That's impossible. The Sacred Armor King will only recognize people of the divine race as their master. How can it recognize a half-human half-monster like you? You better hurry up and tell me the whereabouts of the Sacred Armor King. Perhaps I will let you off temporarily in order to obtain the Sacred Armor King as soon as possible. Qin Chuan had already expected that Kargard would not believe his words, so he did not beat around the bush. He very straightforwardly took out his Yao core from his brain and placed it in front of Kargard. He stretched out his hand and pointed at the little armored dragon that was lying on top of the Yao core, snoring loudly, and said to Kargard, Facts speak louder than words. Kargard looked at the little armored dragon sleeping on Qin Chuan's monster core. His eyes flashed with shock. He didn't expect that Qin Chuan's words were actually true. The Sacred Armor King had actually recognized Qin Chuan as its master. How is this possible? Kargard couldn't believe it. How could a half-human half-monster like Qin Chuan obtain the recognition of the Sacred Armor King? Looking at the shocked expression on Kargard's face, Qin Chuan smiled and asked, According to the rules of your Zerg, shouldn't you be calling me Holy Lord now? Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Kargard suddenly raised his head and looked at Qin Chuan. He coldly said, Are you looking for death? Qin Chuan chuckled and said to Kargard, If you still want to obtain the Sacred Armor King, then it's best if you don't kill me. You know the reason, so I won't say anything else. Hearing Qin Chuan's words, Kargard couldn't help but fall silent. After a long time, he coldly said to Qin Chuan, So this is the reason why you have the confidence to stay. No wonder you want me to let your two companions go first. You're afraid that if they stay here, I'll use them to threaten you. What a good brain, what a good method. You flatter me, Qin Chuan smiled. If I didn't have some skill, I wouldn't dare to face a powerhouse like you. Do you think you can escape by playing some tricks? What a joke! Kargard sneered. I can capture you and slowly torture you until you are willing to hand over the sacred armor king. I have all the time and patience. I hope you don't seek death too quickly. Qinchuan's expression changed slightly when he heard this. He said to Kargard, Aren't you afraid that I'd rather die than live in dishonor? You can try. Let's see if I'll give you the chance. Before Kargard could finish speaking, a tentacle suddenly appeared in front of Qinchuan and quickly wrapped around Qinchuan. The moment Qinchuan saw the tentacle, he instinctively used lightning elemental evasion. His figure flashed and appeared 1,000 meters away. Then, he flew toward the Dragon Spirit Lake at the fastest speed in his life. I'd like to see where you can run to. Kargard let out a low growl, and his huge body appeared behind Qinchuan in a flash. His speed was frighteningly fast. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Countless tentacles flew toward Qinchuan. Qinchuan dodged with lightning elemental evasion, trying his best to distance himself from Kargard. However, Kargard stuck closely behind him like a sticky candy, not giving him any chance to distance himself. Hold on a little longer. Qinchuan gritted his teeth and used lightning elemental evasion again. Continuously using lightning elemental evasion had already taken a toll on his body. If this continued, even if Kargard couldn't catch up to him, his body would collapse first. Chapter 794. Dragon Spirit Lake. Lu Zi and Hui Tong had just landed on the surface of the lake when they sensed Qinchuan and Kargard's auras quickly approaching the Dragon Spirit Lake. It wouldn't take long for them to reach the Dragon Spirit Lake. Qinchuan and Kargard are coming this way, Lu Zi said anxiously. We have to inform Senior Tsang how as soon as possible and have him prepare. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Hui Tong shook his head and said, There's no need to inform him. Senior already knows. Before Hui Tong finished speaking, an extremely powerful aura suddenly rose from the bottom of the Dragon Spirit Lake. It was as vast as the sea. Along with this aura, Song Hao's enormous dragon body also rose to the surface. Voila voila! The black chains around Song Hao's body emitted low rumbling sounds as Song Hao moved, tormenting Song Hao's body. However, Song Hao was already used to this and didn't take it to heart at all. At this moment, his eyes and heart were only filled with the impending arrival of Kargard. The failure from 10,000 years ago would not happen again. Not far away, the moment Song Hao rose to the surface, Kargard sensed Song Hao's existence. He couldn't help but have a subtle look in his eyes. He sneered and said, No wonder you fled in this direction. So you had a backup plan. I still remember this guy's aura. It's that azure dragon from back then. Hearing Kargard sneer, Qinchuan couldn't help but speed up. Right now, Song Hao was his only savior. No matter if it worked or not, he had to give it a try. Whoosh! Qinchuan used almost all of his strength on his explosive speed. He was like a ray of light that reached the top of the Dragon Spirit Lake in the blink of an eye. He stood in front of Song Hao, but when he saw the chains tightly embedded in Song Hao's wounds, his expression couldn't help but turn ugly. Senior, there's no need to say anything else. Back off. Song Hao had no intention of chatting with Qinchuan because Kargard had already followed Qinchuan to the Dragon Spirit Lake. Ha ha ha, little azure dragon, so you've also been sealed. The moment he saw Song Hao, Kargard could not help but laugh out loud. It was as though he had just seen something extremely interesting. Judging by the method used to seal it, it should be done by a human, right? Song Hao remained unmoved when he heard Kargard's words. His tone was indifferent as he said, Kargard, I lost to you 10,000 years ago. Today, let me see what new skills you have besides being stubborn. Let's give it a try. Kargard sneered and launched an attack on Song Hao. Countless tentacles shot towards Song Hao, specifically targeting the wounds on his body. In just a few moments, Song Hao was covered in blood, looking extremely miserable. However, Song Hao did not allow Kargard to attack freely. He roared and spat out a ball of blazing dragon's breath at Kargard. The dragon's breath was like a meteor as it struck Kargard's body, instantly setting him ablaze. Kargard could not help but let out a groan. 10,000 years have passed, and you, little azure dragon, still only have dragon breath. How boring! Kargard growled. A blood-colored mist suddenly rose from his body, corroding the dragon breath on his body in the blink of an eye. However, Song Hao immediately spat out 2 more dragon breaths that landed on Kargard's body and tentacles. At the same time, a cyan phantom appeared on Song Hao's body. It was the incarnation of the Azure Dragon, Tai Hao. Following Song Hao's angry roar, the Azure Dragon phantom began to shine brightly, as an endless amount of energy surged out, rushing towards Kargard. However, just as this energy was about to hit Kargard, the chains that were tightly binding Song Hao suddenly began to tremble violently, before sinking deeper into Song Hao's body by another 3 inches. Song Hao could not help but let out a low roar of pain. Due to the instability of his strength, the Azure Dragon Phantom also began to collapse. Seeing this scene, Kargard immediately laughed heartily. Interesting, really interesting. For a moment, I actually have the feeling of joining forces with the human race to deal with you. Ah. Not far away, Qin Chuan saw that Song Hao could not deal with Kargard with his full strength because of the immortal trap talisman matrix. He could not help but clench his fists and grit his teeth. How can this immortal trap talisman matrix be broken? Hui Tong sighed helplessly when he heard this. He said, if you want to break this immortal trap talisman array, you'll need several Tier 4 talisman array masters to work together. I'm afraid it'll be very difficult for you to do this alone. If you can't break the immortal trap talisman matrix. Although Hui Tong did not finish his words, Qin Chuan and Lu Zi completely understood what he meant. With Song Hao's strength, he could definitely compete with Kargard. However, the immortal trap talisman matrix made Song Hao unable to use half of his strength. It would be very difficult for him to block Kargard. No matter if there's a way or not, I have to try. Qin Chuan looked at the chains that sealed Song Hao. He stared at the faintly discernible runes on the chains as he began to try to break the immortal trap talisman matrix. Lu Zi and Hui Tong did not make a sound when they saw Qin Chuan's performance. They were afraid that they would disturb Qin Chuan. On the other side, Kargard took advantage of the fact that Song Hao was disturbed by the immortal trap talisman matrix to gain the upper hand. He wantonly attacked Song Hao. Song Hao could only do his best to defend. Every time he wanted to gather his strength to counterattack, the immortal trap talisman matrix would disturb him at the crucial moment, causing his every counterattack to be easily resolved by Kargard. Just as Kargard and Song Hao were fighting, Gaoan and the rest finally arrived at the Elf City through the teleportation array. The moment they walked out of the teleportation array, they sensed Kargard and Song Hao's auras and their collision. That's Azure Dragon Song Hao. Among the crowd, Qin Chongxiao, who had fought with Song Hao before, had a slight change in expression. Why is he fighting with Kargard? Qin Chuan's aura is also over there. I think Qin Chuan must have lured Kargard over there. Gaoan said in a deep voice, let's go. Hearing this, everyone immediately took action. They quickly rushed towards the Dragon Spirit Lake. The closer they got to the Dragon Spirit Lake, the more they could feel Kargard's strength and terror. The entire world was trembling because of Kargard's aura. Azure Dragon Song Hao doesn't seem to be a match for Kargard. Long Fei frowned and said, the immortal trap talisman matrix is restricting Azure Dragon Song Hao's performance. Hearing Long Fei mention the immortal trap talisman matrix, Gaoan's expression changed slightly. He asked, do you have a way to break the immortal trap talisman matrix? Long Fei was a little shocked when he heard this. Chairman, right now, Zerg is our human race's main enemy. Moreover, if we don't borrow Azure Dragon Song Hao's power, I'm afraid we won't be a match for Kargard. Gowan said in a deep voice. Therefore, we must help Azure Dragon Song Hao break the Immortal Trap Talisman Matrix. Only then can we fight for a chance of survival. Chapter 795. Just as Gowan's group was rapidly approaching the Dragon Spirit Lake, Qinchuan's group also noticed Gowan's group. However, they weren't happy at all because they didn't think that having more people would have any effect on the current situation. Qinchuan. Gowan landed on the ground and was about to speak to Qinchuan when Lu Zi stopped him. Chairman, Qinchuan is trying his best to crack the Immortal Trap Talisman array. Please don't disturb him. Lu Zi said to Gowan, this is our only hope now. Hearing Lu Zi's words, Gowan said in a deep voice, of course I know this is our only hope. There's no need to crack it because there's someone here who understands the Immortal Trap Talisman array better than anyone else. While speaking, Gowan led Long Fei to the front and said to Lu Zi, this is Long Fei, the patriarch of the Long family. He's the strongest level 4 talisman array master in the Star Dragon Federation. Back then, the Long family participated in the research of the Immortal Trap Talisman array. I don't think there's anyone who has more authority to speak about the Immortal Trap Talisman array than him. Hearing Gowan's introduction to Long Fei, Lu Zi couldn't help but be overjoyed. She cheered, that's great. At this time, Qinchuan had also withdrawn from the state of focus of cracking the Immortal Trap Talisman array. He looked at Long Fei and said in a deep voice, this Immortal Trap Talisman array is formed by a total of 4 restrictions. To crack the Immortal Trap Talisman array master requires 4 level 4 talisman array masters at the same time. Even if my strength can be used as 2 level 4 talisman array masters, we still lack 1 person if we include you. Hearing Qinchuan's words, Long Fei couldn't help but reveal a shocked expression. He cried out involuntarily, you actually cracked the structure of the Immortal Trap Talisman array in such a short time? How is that possible? Nothing is impossible. The crux of the problem now is where are we going to find another level 4 talisman array master? Qinchuan's brows were tightly knitted as he turned his head to look at Song Hao and Kagad. He said in a deep voice, Senior Song Hao can't hold on for much longer. We must break the Immortal Entrapment Talisman formation as soon as possible. But even though there are a few third-rank Talisman Formation Masters in our group, only Long Fei is a 4th-rank Talisman Formation Master. Gowan frowned and said, where are we going to find a 4th-rank Talisman Formation Master in such a short time? Hey, did you guys forget about me? Just when everyone was at their wits' end, a slightly cold and weak voice suddenly sounded in everyone's ears. Everyone subconsciously turned their heads and looked in the direction of the voice. When they saw the pale Ningya, everyone was stunned. Teacher? Are you awake? Qinchuan was pleasantly surprised to see Ningya suddenly appear. He hurried to Ningya's side and reached out to support her. Ningya smiled at Qinchuan and said, it was Senior Song Hao who cured me. I haven't seen you for a few years and you've become more and more powerful. Teacher, your body's condition. Qinchuan was a little worried and said, can you hold on? Breaking the Immortal Entrapment Talisman formation is not an easy task. How do you know if you don't try? Ningya wanted to say something, but she couldn't help but cough up a mouthful of blood. When everyone saw this scene, the hope that had risen in their hearts with great difficulty was instantly shattered. Ningya's current condition was probably worse than a 3rd-rank Talisman Formation Master. It was basically impossible for her to break the restriction of the Immortal Entrapment Talisman formation. Just when everyone was deeply worried, Hui Tong slowly walked over. He opened his palm towards Ningya and said to her, take this. Ningya looked at the drop of golden blood in Hui Tong's palm and asked doubtfully, "What is this?" "Dragon's heart's blood." Qin Chuan recognized the origin of the golden blood at a glance. The dragon's heart's blood is definitely enough for teacher to recover to your peak condition in a short period of time. As he spoke, Qin Chuan looked at Hui Tong and pursed his lips. "Senior, with your current cultivation and strength, this drop of dragon's heart's blood is too precious. No matter how precious the dragon's heart's blood is, it can't compare to so many of our lives. It's not as important as the inheritance of the dragon clan." Hui Tong looked at Qin Chuan. "Don't talk nonsense. Help your teacher take this drop of dragon's heart's blood." Qin Chuan no longer hesitated when he heard this. He reached out and took the dragon's heart's blood and fed it to Ningya. When Ningya took the dragon's heart's blood, her face almost instantly became rosy. Her aura also stabilized and gradually became stronger. Seeing this, Qin Chuan immediately reached out and placed his palm on Ningya's lower abdomen. He used his spirit force to guide Ningya to quickly digest the majestic power contained in the dragon's heart's blood. He quickly helped Ningya recover to her peak condition at the fastest speed possible. Phew! Ningya let out a long sigh of relief and looked at Qin Chuan. She smiled and said, "I feel like I'm about to advance to the middle stage of the nascent soul stage. Don't worry about advancing. Let's break the array first." Qin Chuan looked at the immortal trap talisman array and said to Ningya and Long Fei, "Let's do it together. I'll be in charge of the east and west restrictions. Teacher, you'll be in charge of the south restriction. Senior Long, you'll be in charge of the north restriction." "Alright." Ningya and Long Fei agreed at the same time and quickly flew towards the north and south restrictions. Qin Chuan also flew towards the east and west restrictions. When everyone saw Qin Chuan and the other two's movements, their faces revealed a look of anticipation. As long as they could successfully break the immortal trap talisman array, they would have hope of being saved and defeating Kargard. Just as Qin Chuan and the other two moved, Kargard seemed to have sensed their intentions. He couldn't help but smile ferociously and said to Tsang Hao, "It seems that those humans want to make up for the mistakes they made in the past and help you break the seal. However, don't they think that it's already too late?" Although Tsang Hao was covered in injuries, his gaze was still incomparably firm as he looked at Kargard. He was completely unmoved by Kargard's words and said in a deep voice, "Today, either you die or I die. Since you're so eager to die, I'll fulfill your wish." Kargard roared. His mountain-like body began to swell up once more. His aura also began to grow stronger. As the power of laws began to appear, Kargard's strength had broken through the limits of this world. Kargard's sudden outburst caused Tsang Hao's expression to change greatly. Without any hesitation, he opened his mouth and spat out his Yao Core. He wanted to borrow the power of the Yao Core to block the terrifying attack that was about to come. At the same time, Qin Chuan and the other two stood in front of the restriction and shouted in unison, "Break!" When Qin Chuan and the other two poured their spiritual energy into the restriction and tried to break the immortal trap talisman array, Kargard's attack had already arrived. A red energy ball fell from the sky like a red sun, as if it wanted to destroy this world. It bombarded Tsang Hao's Yao Core with unstoppable force. Chapter 796. Kacha, Kacha. As Qin Chuan and the other two poured in their spiritual energy, the immortal prison charm array that had troubled Tsang Hao for over 8,000 years finally showed signs of collapsing. It let out a weak cracking sound. At the same time, something else was about to shatter. That was Tsang Hao's monster core. Under the bombardment of the red sun, Tsang Hao's monster core only lasted for a short while before cracks appeared on its surface. As time passed, the cracks increased in number and size. Tsang Hao's aura also withered along with the cracks of the monster core. On the other side, The pressure Kargard had to endure to unleash this attack that could destroy the heavens and earth was not small. The power of law in the banished land had a strong repulsive force against him. If he did not stop in time, perhaps he would be heavily injured by the power of law in the next moment. At this moment, Lu Zi and the rest who were standing by the dragon's spirit lake were pressed to the ground by the enormous pressure of the red sun. They were like stones, unable to move at all. The weaker ones even felt that their life force was about to be crushed. Kargard's terror had already exceeded the limits of everyone's understanding and imagination time and time again. Just when everyone thought that they were about to be crushed into meat paste by the pressure of the red sun that covered the sky and illuminated everything in red suddenly expanded and then contracted. In the next moment it suddenly disappeared. The terrifying pressure that was enough to crush this world also disappeared without any warning. Whoosh! The moment the pressure disappeared, everyone immediately sat up from the ground like springs. They violently gasped for breath and their faces were filled with the joy of surviving a calamity. This is... Lu Zi looked at the countless fragments that slowly fell from the sky. Her pupils could not help but shrink. The monster core shattered. Hui Tong's face was filled with bitterness. He said unwillingly, Senior shattered his own monster core and broke Kargard's attack. Clearly, if he had held on a little longer, the immortal prison charm array would have been broken. As long as he waited a little longer, he could have openly fought with Kargard again. Why did he make such a heart-wrenching decision? Hui Tong did not understand. However, Lu Zi could understand Song Hao. Song Hao had shattered his own monster core to save them. If the red sun had not been broken at that time, none of them would have survived. Even this world would have been destroyed. Sacrificing oneself for the greater good. Song Hao shattering his monster core to break the red sun had not only saved everyone, but also caused Kargard to suffer a backlash. He was almost destroyed by the power of the laws of the world. Damn it! Kargade glared at Song Hao. He never imagined that Song Hao would be so decisive as to shatter his own monster core. One had to know that once his monster core shattered, even if Song Hao had heaven-defying abilities, he wouldn't be able to survive. Are you very angry? I was to see this emotion in your eyes. The suffering I have suffered for the past 10,000 years. Were. The suffering for 10,000 years. Was. You are a madman, Kargard said coldly. So what if I am heavily injured? I can kill them all the same. If you die, who in this world can stop me? If I die, he will still be alive. Song Hao chuckled. The hope of my dragon clan. The hope of humanity. Kacha. A crisp cracking sound. The immortal prison charm array that had bound Song Hao for over 8,000 years finally shattered. Freedom was returned to Song Hao once again. Is this freedom? Song Hao narrowed his eyes and said in a low voice. It's really relaxing. It's a feeling I haven't felt in a long time. Senior. Qin Chuan came in front of Song Hao. His face was covered in tears. He said in a choked voice, Junior promised Senior that he would break the seal for you. Junior is incompetent. I came too late. I am sorry. Song Hao smiled as he looked at the sobbing Qin Chuan. I've lived for over 10,000 years. There's nothing left in this world that's worthy of my longing. The only thing left is you. You've inherited my son's bloodline. I hope that you can carry this bloodline and carry the hope of the Dragon Clan's rise to power. Don't ever stop. I will. Qin Chuan nodded and clenched his fists. I will. Kargard heard the conversation between Qin Chuan and Song Hao. He said angrily, the bloodline and hope of the Dragon Clan? Today I will destroy you. With a furious roar, Kargad opened his mouth and spat out a ball of scarlet viscous liquid at Qin Chuan. He wanted to corrode and melt Qin Chuan, but Song Hao twisted his body and blocked the attack for Qin Chuan. Senior. Qin Chuan could not say a word when he saw the pain on Song Hao's face. Remember, it is not that the Dragon Ball is not under your control. It is that the Dragon Clan bloodline in your body is not pure enough to control the Dragon Ball. Today, I will help you finish this last step. Puff. Before he finished speaking, Song Hao opened his mouth and spat out a mouthful of golden blood at Qin Chuan. This was the dragon heart blood that Song Hao had accumulated over the past 10,000 years. There were over 100 drops. The golden dragon heart blood fell on Qin Chuan and almost instantly merged with Qin Chuan's body. Qin Chuan could not help but let out an extremely painful and angry roar. As the Dragon Clan bloodline in Qin Chuan's body was purified and sublimated, the Dragon Ball hidden in Qin Chuan's body finally established a true connection with Qin Chuan. 9 Transformations of the Dragon Ball, Heavenly Light. Following Qin Chuan's furious roar, an extremely dazzling golden light suddenly erupted from the Dragon Pearl. This golden light sprinkled down on Kargard's body, and actually melted a small portion of Kargard's body in an instant. No. How is this possible? No. Kargad screamed in horror and roared in anger. He was unwilling to accept this. He had just escaped, and the chance to become the lord of the sacred race was right in front of him. How could he die so easily? I'll kill you! Kargad roared. He no longer cared about anything else and erupted with all his strength. He wanted to kill Qin Chuan. Only by killing Qin Chuan would he be able to survive. However, just as Kargad's strength completely erupted, the power of law that had just disappeared appeared once more. It became the shackles that restricted Kargad, causing him to fail on the verge of success. Not only did Kargad's strength not help him kill Qin Chuan, but it instead became Qin Chuan's helper, the straw that broke the camel's back. Die! Qin Chuan's expression was ferocious. He roared and poured all the spiritual energy in his body into the Dragon Ball, completing a fatal blow to Kargad. Song Hao fell to the ground and watched as Kargad's body completely melted under the light of the Dragon Ball. A gratified look appeared on his face. In this life, I can die without regrets. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.